Just sound like you hit the hammer. With the glass. Wait, what? Did we start?
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call to order the regular Board of Trustees meeting for Tuesday, July 8th, 2025. Will you please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Quick, will you call the roll, please?
Mayor Karspeck.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Murphy.
Here.
Trustee Hardy.
Yes.
Trustee Albrecht.
Here.
Trustee Wing.
Here.
Trustee Ayers.
Here.
Thank you. Next on our agenda is citizen participation. This is a chance for anyone in the audience to speak to stuff that is not on tonight's agenda. We have one for river trails, and we'll speak to that at the item number 4, but the other two, so we'll start out with John Vansel. Welcome, sir.
Here.
Yes, sir.
I got some concerns about the traffic on Welch Avenue. I live on the corner of Second and Welch. Number one, that's a four-way stop if people decide to stop. So I was wondering if maybe you couldn't put some flashing lights on it like you've done on Fifth Avenue by the school.
Okay, thank you. I'll turn that over to Administrator Kirk. I'm trying to think of Fifth right now. Administrator Kirk?
Did you say Fifth and Welch?
No, Second Welch.
Second and Welch.
Right,
The
what's the
lights I
one on
referred to
Oh,
were on
sure.
Fifth and Ivy Stockwell School.
Oh, I got you.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. Oftentimes those blinking lights become a nuisance at nighttime for the neighbors, but I mean, from a practical standpoint, it's not a hard thing to install solar mounted lights. There's a cost to them and it's not significant.
Do you know the cost? Just
I don't know off the top of my head. I think I probably shouldn't even throw a number out, but I want to say it's somewhere in the neighborhood of $800 a sign, something like that.
Is there any kind of traffic threshold, the amount of traffic that will warrant something like that? Is there some kind of benchmark?
No, not for flashing light. So the traffic warrant might dictate a stop sign at an intersection, but not whether or not that stop sign's lit. So that's something you would do if you felt like there was some, limited roadway distance where you couldn't see those signs, or if there was some other physical obstruction that might make them less obvious or less visible. At least that's my experience. I'm not aware of any
I think Bunyan has a
threshold.
couple of them, but that's a pretty busy road.
We typically put them in really high pedestrian areas. That's where we're particularly concerned about them, like by the school. And there are some flashing lights by the school on Bunyan as well, not just on Fifth Street. But we don't have a lot of flashing stop signs in neighborhoods, or off main thoroughfares or outside of really heavily pedestrian areas.
Mr. Vansel, thank you for you're not bringing this up for the first time, I think, since I've been on the board.
I've
It's
been
your
here
fourth or fifth
numerous
time.
times about truck traffic on Welch.
Right.
But need to do something about speed on Welch too. People think that's a drag strip. And on Second Avenue, the police had a speed monitor going south or going north. But when people go south, they got a real long stretch there to see how fast they can get going. Even though you have a speed bump there, they don't care. So just like to bring it to your attention because safety issue as far as I'm concerned.
I do
Certainly.
have a question on that. We
Certainly.
have some pedestrian passageways on Third and Welch. And I know when we did our downtown kind of tour, we talked about some permanent structures there. Do we have anything in the plans for Third and Welch?
We
to
don't.
increase pedestrian safety?
Right now, we just have the painted kind of the delineators that are marked to create a little narrower crosswalk. That's effectively what those are for. At some point, we could do curb and gutter and some landscape improvements, which I think would be a good idea. Probably after we do the Third Street improvements north of Mountain Avenue, it would make sense to flip and do the Third Street improvements south of Mountain Avenue.
If the traffic conditions continue, it seems like we might wanna expedite something that slows the speeds through there. Cause I have noticed, especially with, they're lacking sidewalks in some of those areas, it could be really dangerous to get through there as a pedestrian or cyclist, so.
We did do a speed study on Welch, maybe a year and a half ago, plus or minus. We have the radar mounted trailer that, trailer mounted radar that will track and monitor and produce a report. I think that the average speeds were very much within the typical speed. In fact, I think the average speed was well below the sign speed, but we do get outliers, as you can imagine. I mean, that's true on every road. We did a speed study on 8th Street one time. We had a car going 80 miles an hour down 8th Street. I don't know if that was an anomaly or if that was a real reading, but every once in a while you'll get one of those outliers. So I don't know if those are accurate or not, but in general, you know, I think the max speed was probably in the mid 40s, if I remember right. But the averages are well below the posted speed limit.
Do we have a trip count by chance that shows the amount of traffic?
I believe that study also shows the amount of traffic. It counts every single car that it's able to register. So I could look back at that report and tell you what that traffic count is for that time period. But that's a very small snapshot, it may not be representative of all the time. You know, I wouldn't call it an official traffic count, but it did give us some good idea about how much traffic goes through there on a daily basis.
Okay. Trying to get some resolution here. Mr. Vincent, have you ever, I don't know if I have your email, have you emailed us before?
I don't know if I have, I wrote it on that paper.
Oh, duh. Okay, I'll follow up here with an email to you. We can get that trip data for you. I guess we could bring it up under reports. If it's 800, it doesn't seem out of it, but just if the board would support doing that or not, putting out some lights.
Okay, I got one more
Okay.
concern. A lot of trucks come down Welch, which they're making deliveries, you know, in town.
Mhm.
When they get to Second and Welch, could you put up a sign that says all trucks must turn left? Semis have no business on a residential area. I don't care what you tell me about it. I drove for 50 years for Yellow Freight. And they got truck routes that they should follow. In fact, last week I seen a 40-foot tanker truck hauling gasoline going down Welch. Those people know better. They got designated hazmat routes. And I guarantee you, Welch Avenue between Second and First is not a hazmat route. So, I mean, think about it. You tell me you can't do anything about posting the streets on a weight limit, but, you know, they don't wanna go around that roundabout. I know that's why they go down Welch.
Okay,
I'd appreciate it if you'd look into it.
thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vincent. Sarah Lincoln?
My name is Sarah Lincoln. I live at 236 Highway 56. It's the home of Newell Farm Park. And a week ago, I sent you all an email talking about the fact that Farmstead third filing is coming through the Planning Commission. I'm not sure if it's gonna come to you next week, 2 weeks from now or not. Originally, it was planned to have a public hearing 2 weeks from now. And I wanted to just make sure it's on your radar screen. I did hear back from Will, I heard back from you, Carl, thank you. What I'd like to request is that we put it in the process and get it on the port agenda for August so that the Parks and Rec Committee can talk about it and think about Newell Farm Park because they haven't done that yet. It was rightfully on the back burner and now it needs to be brought forward because I mentioned in the email that no one mentioned the park relative to the revised master plan for Farmstead filing, third filing. But what I didn't mention was that we got locked out of the building with Steve Schroyer, who represents Farmstead. And I just used the opportunity to ask him about it. And he hadn't heard about Newell Farm Park. At least that's what he said. So he didn't talk to anyone about it, and he said his master plan did not take into consideration anything with regard to the park. So he said, I just put what I needed to put. And so if we want to create that park as a musical venue, and we want 2,000-3,000 people to go to a weekly concert series, we need him to accommodate that with access points and parking. If we want to put in a performing arts center, or a community center, or a senior center, or a combination of all of that, he needs to know about that, and he needs to help us. So one of the things that I noted was that the revised master plan did make modifications from the original master plan that the Edwards did. And some of them are better, some of them are not as good. So we just need to pay attention. So I know you guys will do the right thing, just asking that we pay attention. And if we could get it on the port, and if we could think about it, if you need a study session, I don't know. But just asking that the master plan doesn't get approved until we know it's right.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Do you have any comments on that? It's hard, the developer didn't even know about that. It's kind of hard to digest, but.
At least that's
I'm
what
not
he
sure if
said.
that's true or not.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure I've had direct conversations with him about it, but they were years ago, so in fairness, he may not recall.
Okay.
Um,
Is that possible to get that on an agenda?
On a port agenda?
Yeah,
I mean, I could talk to Keith and the board committee. I
Just
would
that-
assume so.
I don't know how that works with the legalities, but if they could just know that there's a development coming up, I don't know if the board feels all right with that, but having Port see that, when's the last time? Port seen it?
The board did budget money for a concept plan for Newell Farm Park for this year. So that was gonna go before the port committee sometime this fall anyway, as just to kind of kick that process off. So I could talk to Keith about expediting that. I know they do have an item planned for the first meeting in August as well, but I think this is probably something they could get in front of the board committee. That would make sense to me.
Is there a way that the board can weigh in on concepts for that property?
Yeah, you would absolutely weigh in on concepts. The way we typically do the port process is we'll take some of the initial ideas to the port committee. We'll let them kind of refine them, make a recommendation before we get real far into design, and then that will come to you for you to go, yes, we think that's the right direction, or not. And then we'll take that and we'll go through a little more rigorous design process with the port committee being kind of that primary oversight. And then again, as that concept gets refined into maybe one or two final options, then that would come back to you. That would be our normal process.
Sure. I just wasn't sure if perhaps we could come to consensus on the concept prior to that, just so that they can fine tune that. I think there's just a couple ideas I think would be really no-brainers to me, and maybe I'm a lone ranger in that, but I don't know if we should have a study session to discuss concepts and then give the port, give it to port to refine. That's just my thoughts. I don't know how you guys feel.
I think, yeah, either of those sound good. My just concern is that it's in front of, the developer's clear on what we want before we approve that.
Well, and for clarity, the original Farmstead developer, who no longer owns the project, sold it to a different developer, had suggested combining some park space that they were gonna own and with parts of Newell Farm. I think there's some risk associated with that. That could probably all be done. It would have to be dedicated to the town, and we'd have to take it all, which I think was part of his goal, was that we would take his park. And so I think there might be some sense to that. That would give us some space to expand. The current developer is less interested in that. There's not an obligation in the code to do that as part of his planning effort, and so, or their planning effort, I suppose. And so that concept has changed, where our park would be separate and standalone. There would be access to the park through the subdivision. I think that's a necessity. But whether or not we combine their space with our space, that's a different conversation, I think.
I was just gonna mention, I could see it just based on what you were saying. I could see it being beneficial that we have some type of study session or just work session with Sarah and discuss some of those. Perhaps we compromise with the developer, and instead of them providing park space, they provide a new corridor or something like that, so that whoever's visiting a farm concert could see the mountains. or something to that effect. I think that conversation could be really beautiful with Sarah in the room because they think about it every day. And it'd be nice for us to have that insight to give to Port, to say, how can we incorporate this? Does that make any sense?
Yeah.
I believe the Farmstead project is coming before you at your next meeting. It is scheduled for July 22nd or 3rd, whatever day that is. So you will be seeing their neighborhood master plan on the 23rd, 22nd, 22nd? 22nd.
That is the issue, I think, that the board has a chance to look at that before, but it's too late. Sounds like.
Yeah, they've been scheduled for a while.
All right, we'll keep that in our head. Thank you, I can't really think on the spot how we can get around that, but.
No, it sounds like they need to come. They don't need to be approved. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, the other one, this, Charlotte, there's a chance under the river trails section. So we will move now to consent. Oh, since you're under the river trails, is that what you're speaking to?
Yeah, we know it's not on the agenda
Right.
in terms of substance,
Mhm.
but I just want to say a couple of words for the group of people and residents who've been following this issue.
Certainly,
They
I'll
asked me
open
to-
that up under,
Well-
or do you want me to do it now?
Well, it's scheduled for a continuance, so we would wait till that point in the meeting, but I would counsel that the comments be saved for the hearing.
For the hearing?
Yes.
And if she did speak now, she could not speak at the hearing? I'm
Well,
guessing?
the hearing is supposed to be the place where all the comments are
Mhm.
given. So I would urge the speaker to make her comments during the hearing.
In the future, not because tonight's also, even a continuance is a public hearing, isn't that correct?
The continuance is just a motion to
Continue.
continue, and it is not a public hearing.
Okay.
So,
Yes, Charlotte, I guess as the chair, I'd like to have you speak under the hearing, so not tonight.
So I've got a couple minutes.
No, during the hearing when this comes before us again.
Okay,
Thank you. I'm
Thank
sure that's
you.
frustrating, but I just want to keep things very clean.
thank you, Mayor.
I'll send my remarks to the trustees.
Certainly, we'll forward them on staff. to-
Yes, and they can certainly be
Added.
submitted in writing, absolutely.
Okay, we'll move on now to consent. Trustees, like anything removed from consent? Otherwise, is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve the consent agenda?
Trustee Wing has moved, is there a second? Trustee Hardy has seconded. Clerk, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Trustee Wing,
Yes.
Trustee Hardy,
Yes.
Trustee Ayers,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Murphy,
Yes.
Trustee Albrecht,
Yes.
Mayor Karspeck.
Yes. All right, consent has been approved. Our second regular item tonight is the town board vacancy appointment. I'll turn this over, it has our name on it, but clerk, can you just give us an overview?
Certainly. Good evening, Mayor Karspeck and trustees. As you are aware, Trustee Kurtz resigned from his position as town trustee on the 13th of May, which created a vacancy on the town board that needed to be filled. And with that, the town board gave direction to solicit applications from currently serving volunteer committee and commission members. Staff did solicit applications from the currently serving volunteer members. We did receive 3 applications in total. 2 of the applicants did withdraw their application prior to this evening, stating time commitment, mostly. So we do have 1 applicant that is still in the running for the vacancy. They are joining us virtually this evening, so we will be able to display them on the monitors at the dais here as well as feed audio into the room. I do have a series of questions that you can use if you wish. You don't necessarily need to, but I thought it might be helpful as a starting point. Would you mind passing that down, Chris?
Thank you.
Thank you, clerk. All right, if trustees are good with this, do we just want to go down the row, ask one each? Or do you want me to ask them all? That work? Sure.
And
All right,
if-
clerk, is there anything else?
Certainly, if the trustees would like to add questions, that's certainly okay if you would like to add questions to that list. That's really just kind of a starting place to get started.
Thank you. And then after we're asking these questions, the applicant's Mr. Brody, right?
Yes, that is
Um,
correct.
Do we want to keep them, like, when they were in person, they would leave the room, but this being Zoom, how does that work?
Certainly, so we can leave them in the Zoom room.
Okay.
And I can go ahead and mute the audio feed out to Zoom. That way there can be discussions with regard to the process.
And even though that is still very public to the audience and everyone else, be part of the record, just for the applicant. Okay.
That is correct, yes.
Excellent. Thank you. Is that all?
That is all.
Okay, let's, do we have Mr. Brody and, launch that out in?
Yes, we do have Mr. Brody in the room now. Mr. Brody, can you hear us?
Sure can.
Perfect, thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Brody. This is Mayor Karspeck here. We have the full board, well, it's the 6 of us. Instead of all of the trustees, we have about 4 or 5 questions for you. I'll just ask them all, just make it a little more simple, if that's all right.
Absolutely.
And then after we'll ask these questions, the clerk will kind of remove you, put you back in the waiting room. The trustees can kind of deliberate this, and then this isn't gonna, this will be tonight, so then we'll bring you back in. Okay, so I'll start off with question number 1. If you could tell us briefly, first of all, I'm just kind of skipping through this, but thank you very much for applying and for being here tonight. This is, I'm sure, quite nerve-wracking for you, and just wanted to thank you for your time serving on planning as well. So thank you for stepping up and just applying with us. I'll start off with question number 1. If you could tell us briefly about yourself, why you are interested in serving on the Board of Trustees, and what experience and education you would bring to the town Board of Trustees.
Well, I first and foremost, I want to support the community that I live in, my family lives in. This is home to us. We have always lived in kind of the northern Colorado area, lived in some of the neighboring communities to the south, Longmont, Lyons, and Erie predominantly. And really, what inspired me to get involved with the Planning Commission was we lived in Erie at a time of explosive growth. And I really felt that the way the development was handled at that time, development really kind of ran over the culture of the town. And I think Berthoud has such a unique, kind of unspoiled culture and vibe to it that's unique to the Front Range at this point in time with the amount of people that live in it. There's that the ability to help preserve that. I'm not anti-growth. I'm not, pro-growth either. Let the, everybody run over the top of the town. But I think there's an opportunity here to have the growth and have development and have those resources for the town and the people, and doing it responsibly. And so that's what really inspired me to get on the Planning Commission and be part of that solution versus, standing on the sidelines and complaining about everything. So I see this as another opportunity to get maybe a little bit deeper involved in the community aside just from Planning Commission. And so I would be honored to serve on the Board of Trustees at this time.
Thank you. Question number 2 here is, are you aware of the time commitment, and do you have the time to devote to serving on the Board of Trustees?
I do, and I am.
All right, that was quick. If appointed, what would you like to accomplish on the board during your term?
I think, again, being a positive member of the community and understanding not just proper town, but some of the other dynamics in town as well, I think gives me some unique qualifications. And really, again, being part of this long-term plan for Berthoud and really helping the community embrace this growth in a responsible manner.
Thank you. Finally, what do you believe is the biggest issue facing the town of Berthoud?
I think there's a couple of big issues. The biggest one is, we've got a very large historical or residential community that have lived here for, in some cases, generations, right? And Berthoud in the past was a relatively anti-growth community, and that has now changed for various reasons. And I think that there's still that opportunity to kind of bridge that gap between the pioneer families, so to speak, that have resided in Berthoud for potentially generations, and new families coming in and kind of have the best of both worlds, the resources and the growth and the revenue and the tax base that comes with that, and then the amenities that your citizens can participate in and enjoy, but doing it in a responsible manner.
Thank you. Trustees, is there anything in addition you'd like to ask?
I had a question.
Mayor Pro Tem, please.
Regarding some of the port issues facing the board, we have a number of priorities competing for first kind of position. We have an arboretum design underway. We have a pool design underway. We have Richardson designs completed. With regards to those priorities, along with the 2024 port survey, how would you best facilitate and support community needs with regards to parks and recreation?
Well, I think, especially in a growing community, to be able to preserve those open spaces for all of the community to be able to use, not necessarily, for example, in Erie, they had, it was all about baseball and softball fields and bringing in revenue to the town for weekend tournaments, tournaments and things like that. But I think those areas that really everybody can participate in and enjoy, and it doesn't always have to involve a building or a structure. It's just that having that area to be able to breathe and enjoy nature in the middle of your town, I think is super important. From a prioritization standpoint, I really think, it depends on, what our budget situation is and, really where you can get the most impact and the greater good for the community with the dollars that you have available to work with. And that's obviously something that gets considered and balanced by the Board of Trustees and the town administration on a daily, weekly, monthly basis.
Thank you.
Other questions? Any final comments, Mr. Brody, before we briefly boot you to the lobby?
No, I'm just, I want to thank you for the opportunity. I want to do my part to serve our community, and I've enjoyed my time on Planning Commission, and I've really, I think, learned a lot about that particular part of the process and been able to give some positive influence to that process. And I think that serving on the Board of Trustees, one, fills a need for the town without having to create a special election, but also bring my experience that I've learned from the Planning Commission and bring that to the Board of Trustees as well.
Thank you very much. And thank you for your service on the Planning Commission.
You bet.
All right, if you could just hang tight for just briefly here. Thank you.
Sure will.
Weird. Okay, let's just go down the line first and just see how we all feel about this. We'll start off with Trustee Albrecht.
Well, I'm happy to see someone at the table that has a lot of experience and passion to build bridges. I think it's not ironic at all that since I've been involved, everyone talks about growth and the balance between not ruining our town and still being economically viable. So I think he hit the nail on the head with that. But he sounds like a great component to the current commission he's on. I think he'd be an asset to the board as well.
Trustee Ayers?
I would second Trustee Albrecht's comments, and looking over the application, everything looked really good. Good experience. Already has contacts with the town, is already kind of ingrained in some of the issues that are going around. And despite this happens, it's amazing that this happens so much in this town, but despite the small number of applicants and the fact that there's only one left, it doesn't make me concerned about having to pick the only applicant. the only applicant. This time, it would have been in the running if there were 30 applicants. So everything looked good, so I don't really have any concerns.
Trustee Hardy?
Ditto.
Okay.
Twice. And, being on the planning commission steering thing with the housing, affordable housing plan, it was good to work with them on that and see how he operated with the planning commission. So, yeah.
Trustee Wing?
I don't know the exact process on opening it up broader, but it seems like a foregone conclusion.
Oh, we can open it up after this too. I just want to get your initial thoughts.
Oh, we can?
Yeah, if you want.
Oh.
To each other, yeah. Do you have any questions? We can just do it right now. Do you have any?
No, that was my question is, I wasn't 100% if our pool is one.
Oh, I see.
If our pool is 1 versus 12,000, nothing against the candidate.
Yeah.
But it'd be nice to have a bigger pool to pull from. Again, I don't know the process. I don't think we'd have to have an election just because we went outside somebody who's already in it. We could still appoint somebody after we talk to them. So again, when you have one candidate, I don't think there's a lot to talk about, whether he's great or not.
If I could interject and ask 2 questions of Attorney Smith, if you're ready.
Looking for that memo I had about the timing issue.
Regarding this appointment, this would be until April of 2026,
Correct.
correct? And if we were to not choose the candidate tonight, what would be the following process?
I think we default into the need for a special election because we have a strict time frame under the code statute to appoint to fill the vacancy. And I believe we're running up to that deadline. Is that correct?
Do you know the deadline, just out of curiosity?
I believe the deadline is in 4 or 5 days, if I recall correctly.
You said a couple things there though. So I heard you say election and I heard you say appoint. I'm a little gray
We
on that.
default to having to have an election if we don't appoint tonight because we have a strict deadline to
Oh.
meet to appoint and fill that vacancy. And if we miss that deadline, then we are forced
I
to
understand
hold
that.
a
Thank
special
you.
election.
Thank you.
And one bit of note that I don't know has come up, but I do think is probably relevant. This appointment is only until the next regular election, which is next April. So just so that we're all clear, even though Trustee Kurtz wouldn't have been termed out, the statute says that you can only appoint someone until the next regular election.
Oh.
So I don't think we could open it up to more in this time frame. It would just, we would kind of induce an election.
Right.
And having a special election now to then have to have another election in April
Right.
may not make sense. That's certainly your choice, but it's expensive and time consuming to run elections, so.
My vote would be for the one horse in the race.
Okay. Mayor Pro Tem?
No, I want to thank Mr. Brody for stepping up to this role. It's not an easy step up. I think he's certainly capable of filling this vacancy, and I'm thankful to have him stepping forward. And just going into the future, I do have some concern with only having one candidate. I would like more citizens to step into the void, whether it's our committees or running for office. But I think he is a solid choice to fill the vacancy. I think it makes sense for the timeline we're running on, so I'm supportive.
Okay. I feel the exact same. I think Trustee Ayers kind of said it, even if there was a big group, it's great he came from planning. I had the pleasure of interviewing him for his planning commission seat, and he's very well spoken. Just like Trustee Kurtz, he's a man of few words, but when he does speak, there's impact to what he says. So I think he'll be a great asset to this board. And again, coming from planning, I think that's really great, considering he's seen and will be seeing a lot of the stuff that the board goes through too. So I'm very happy with Mr. Brody as well. And I do echo the words. It's always not good to have one candidate, but, two backed out, and that's kind of good if they don't have the time commitment, that they caught that early. So we're just left with Mr. Brody, which in my personal opinion, I think I'm fine with. I'm actually happy about it. Is there anything else? It seems like we're all supportive. Okay, excellent. Let's bring Mr. Brody back into the room. Okay, Mr. Brody, are you here?
I am.
Thank you for stepping out briefly, virtually stepping out. I suppose the best way to handle this is just to go right into the vote, but before we do, I just want to let you know you have your family here in the crowd, and we wanted to thank you for stepping up and all your service on planning as you've done so far. Is there anything else we want to add? Okay, well, thank you very much. Would anyone like to move on this?
I move to appoint Mike Brody to the Town Board of Trustees to serve for the remainder of the vacant term, which will expire in April of 2026.
Second.
All right, there's been a motion to appoint Mark Brody to the Board of Trustees. There's been a second by Mayor Pro Tem. Clerk, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Trustee Hardy,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Murphy,
Yes.
Trustee Wing,
Yes.
Trustee Albrecht,
Yes.
Trustee Ayers,
Yes.
Mayor Karspeck.
Yes. All right, as you've seen, it's an unanimous vote, Mr. Brody. We look forward to having you on this side of the dais in the fashion of a trustee. So thank you for putting your name out, and we'll see you, I guess, at the next meeting.
To swear him in.
Right here.
Glad to do it, and thank you very much. I appreciate it. Looking forward to it.
Thank you.
Thank
Have a
you.
great night.
Take care.
Thank you all for showing up. All right. That's always a little interesting. Usually it's in person and there's an applause. And, yeah, okay. We'll see you at the next meeting though. Okay, now we can move on to this continuance Broadmeadow annexation. At this time, I'm just going to turn it over to Attorney Smith to kind of explain this process. It's a little unique.
Thank you, Mayor. And you are correct. The city clerk, Samora, did an excellent job on your agenda supplement, which lays out the process for what we need to do under the Broadmeadow annexation continuance number 3. So I would request that the mayor open the public hearing on the annexation. I would point out that Director Johnson intends to make no remarks or make no presentation. I do not know if the applicant intends to make any presentation, because the point is that they are anticipating that you would then continue this. You would wait and make that action in an hour, which sounds odd, but the public hearing, once you open it, should remain open for an hour, because we have to deal with a peculiar state statute that requires an hour's time of public hearing before you continue. I would also point out that that was done already. I'm moving on to item number 4 to give you a little heads up as well. That was done already for item 4. That's why you can simply avoid having the public hearing and hold the public hearing in August for that one. You already had an opening of the public hearing. You took an hour of testimony.
We just didn't know we were doing it, right?
Back several months ago now. So that's the reason why you treat them differently, and you do need to treat them differently because of the way the statute operates.
Thank you.
And I'd be happy to answer any questions on that.
And for the madam that was here earlier, the way, I guess, maybe I should answer my own question, but as a chair, we wanted it to be with the other group. So she could have technically spoke tonight, but she couldn't have spoke at a future meeting?
No, my counsel is that because that one is going to be continued, that there really is no opportunity for any public comment tonight on River Trails.
So I'm gonna open up the hearing, but not the comment.
Yeah, well, you're continuing the hearing. The hearing was opened up several months ago. You are continuing the hearing. You're not reopening it. You're continuing the hearing that was opened several months ago with regard to River Trails. with regard to Broadmeadows, you are opening up the public hearing tonight.
Right. Opening up the public hearing, and then it's likely opening up to public.
Yes,
Okay,
any public that
thank
is
you. She
here.
was here for River Trail. Thank you.
Yes,
Gotcha,
yes.
Gotcha now. All right, I'm tracking. Okay. I'll open it up, the hearing for, the Broadmeadow annexation. Sounds like staff will not be giving report. The applicant will also not be giving, any kind of presentation. So we'll open up the hearing.
For any
And,
public comment.
Public comment, thank you. And if anyone wishes to speak to this, if you could keep your comments, come to the front, state your name and address, and keep your comments to 3 minutes or less, thank you. I'll note the time here. Okay. We have no one right now. I'll just keep it open.
Yes,
All right, so
Thank
we'll just,
you.
interesting, we're running two,
it'll run concurrently in the
Yeah.
background. Thank you.
okay. We'll now move on to, item number 4, River Trails annexation, continuance. Is this correct?
Correct.
Okay.
So you do other things.
What's that?
You can do other things during the hour.
Yes, yep.
And again, the River Trails, you've already had an hour, so you can just motion to continue this hearing if you so choose.
So well, the reason we're doing this, is this because the applicant, they're changing some stuff on it and they didn't want to come before us? Is this what's going on?
And address that, yeah.
Thank you.
Mayor Kursbeck and members of the town board of trustees. So the applicant has some travel obligations as well as wanting to address comments made during the planning commission meeting. So they are wanting to continue this to August 26th so that everybody on the team could be present as well as addressing comments raised during the planning commission meeting.
Excellent, thank you. Okay, since we've already heard the public comment under that one, or the hour, excuse me, we can just move right into, okay, thank you. Kind of on the cheat sheet there, but if we want to continue the continuation request there, would anyone like to do that?
I'll make a motion to approve the continuation request for the River Trails annexation, neighborhood master plan, zoning and metro district service plan to a date certain from July 8th, 2025 to August 26th, 2025.
Thank you, trustee Wing. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. We have a motion, it's been seconded. Clerk, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Trustee Wing,
Yes.
trustee Hardy,
Yes.
trustee Ayers,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Murphy,
Yes.
trustee Albrecht,
Yes.
Mayor Karsbeck.
Yes, all right, so that's also been continued unanimously. We'll move on to
Thank you, Mayor and trustees.
We'll move on to item number 5 now, the water reclamation facility, early word package and guaranteed max price. We have our water utilities director, Ken Matthews here. Welcome. Thank you for being here. I'd like to add real quick that a couple of us trustees just toured the water treatment plant before this.
Good.
Yeah.
Did you have fun?
Huh?
Did you have a good time?
We've had a good time. I hope we don't stink. It was very
good.
awesome though.
That's good. Thank you, Mayor, trustees. I also have Savannah Dumler here. You met her before, our project engineer for the town. We're here today to kind of talk to you about this project, bring you up to date. This is a major capital project for the town and for the water department. Give you a little bit of history, how we got here real quickly, so you don't have to try to scratch your brains and remember. And like I said, update you on the progress, and then outline the item that's before you now that we need or requesting approval of. So basically, out of the 2023 Water Wastewater Master Plan was a recommendation for a series of improvements at the wastewater treatment plant. This phase 1A is the first of several improvements, and in 2024 we had an RFP, a request for proposal for a design build team. We were looking to deliver this project using a progressive design build methodology, and we got several submittals on that, several good submittals. We selected Moltz Construction and Burns and Mack. Went through a period of time last year, working out terms and negotiating agreement with that design build team. In November of last year, we brought to you the contract for that work. And that was approved. That was about $700,000, $711,000, of which was primarily design. The construction component to that fee was professional effort as part of the design build process. So that's what we've been working with over the last several months on that. We are at, what is our design completion, would you say now?
We're at 60%, waiting on 90.
Okay. And so at this point, the design team has, in combination with input from us and our contract operator, has brought the project to the point where we can do a couple things. And they're kind of queued up on your desk today. One of which is what we're calling an early work package. A lot of this equipment, as you can imagine, has very long lead time from when we order it, review submittals, and actually make a formal purchase order and then receive the equipment. So we need to get out in front of that. So that's what the early work package is. There's also, Savannah can walk you through some of the specifics on that, but some contractor time in there also. The other component to that is what we're calling the GMP, or the Guaranteed Max Price. At this point in our design process, the contractor can tune his construction cost estimate to the point where he can guarantee a max price. We establish a contingency on some conditions on how to administer that contingency, and so that we can move ahead. And this also provides kind of the latest and greatest, and what we are planning for is the maximum cost for this project. There are several mechanisms in place to bring the cost in under this number, actually. But anyway, that's kind of the lion's share of what we want to take care of today. Savannah, if you could kind of walk through a little bit of the particulars, the kind of the nuts and bolts that's included in and what they have in front of them right now.
Yeah, so the early work package, that is those long lead time items, while we're kind of finalizing that 90% design, and getting to 100% based on the comments we've provided so far. It's getting the equipment we know we're gonna buy and need ordered now, because, some of these pieces of equipment have like 6-month lead times. So we don't wanna wait till we're 100% finalized, starting construction, and okay, now let's wait for something to show up. So those are gonna be our big items. We have our blowers in there, so that's gonna be what aerates those aeration basins for the provides air to the bugs. We have the pumps for returning the bugs and feeding the bugs, the RAS and the mixed liquor return pumps. For those who were out on site today, you saw our influence screen. That's the initial screening, and it's in rough shape, and it's been in rough shape, and our operators have done a great job in limping it along, but we're also gonna get that ordered and replaced, a part of this project as well. And then also the large bug bowl mixers to mix and really try not to aerate the bugs, so it's to mix without over aerating. So those are gonna be the long lead items that we wanna get ordered right away as soon as possible. And that's a $2.6 million of equipment order that if we get the go-ahead and the approval, we'll let them know right away. And they can start getting that equipment, so the clock starts ticking down on when it's actually gonna arrive on site. And then the guaranteed maximum price will be the price including the early work package. So those two numbers don't get added together. It's $15 million total for everything that needs to get done at that plant. And those are pretty refined numbers. Like I said, we've approved the 60% design. We are still working through the 90. We've seen a copy of it. We've provided comments, and we've worked closely with the contractor to really refine those numbers to make sure it's pretty accurate and erring on the side of caution so that there is cost savings. a part of this contract is a 7% contingency on this, which is included in that total cost. And every cost savings we have on the project will go into that contingency as well. And then at the end of the project, we have an agreement with the design builder that they will receive 30% of that contingency. So there's a lot of incentive for them to not overspend the project and to try to bring that savings in as much as possible. So, the construction will also take about a year from the notice to proceed. So most of that being equipment and dirt work and then concrete.
So it's in the packet here, just for the audience. Where is this funds coming from to make this happen?
Yes, it's, both of these it's actually a shared cost between Fund 23 and Fund 24. Fund 23 is the wastewater operations fund, and Fund 24 is the capital fund. And then we're sharing that cost 50-50 between those two funds.
So these are enterprise, these are paid for by customers?
And new connections and the development. And shared 50-50 between those two funds.
All right. Trustees, any questions?
Yes.
Trustee Wing?
I heard a few numbers and I just want to get some clarification on.
Yeah.
So 711,000 is for the design work, is that
Yes,
accurate?
that was the initial design, yes.
And that's 60% completed?
Yeah, well, somewhere between 60 and 90, which is an odd number to say, but that's how
Okay.
designs are measured.
Then I heard a number of 2.6 million for equipment. So what's the process, or when would we approve that?
So we're asking for approval for that fund today, so that way we can go ahead and get that approved. Since we're here and we had your ear, we figured we have the guaranteed maximum price, is to go
Okay.
ahead and just get that approved as well. The reason they're coming at two different times or two different pieces is we are gonna give them the go-ahead to order the equipment. We don't wanna give them the go-ahead on the guaranteed maximum price yet, because once that clock starts ticking, they get their notice to proceed, they have a year to get everything done, and we want to delay it slightly to make sure that we're getting everything completed.
And is that equipment the early work package? Is that what
Yeah,
it is?
that's the
And I'm
early work
sorry, I don't have, what you kept referring, we have it in front of us on the, I'm
Oh,
sorry,
sorry.
I don't have my computer, I'm sorry about that. And then the third number I heard was 50 million.
15,
15.
1.5, yes.
Okay, that's why I asked for clarification. So we got the 2.6 for the equipment we need to order ahead of time to get things working. And then could you just at a high level say what the other 13 or 12.5 million is for?
Yeah, so that's actually gonna be the work to install it, that's gonna be, a big part of this is putting in basins. So those giant concrete basins that had all the bubbles happening where the bugs were, we're adding 2 more of those. Not as big, but they're gonna be on the front end of those where we actually have our anoxic zone, so where we take the oxygen away from the bugs. Before then we over aerate them to keep them eating. And that's what really causes the nutrient removal. And so it's gonna be a lot of concrete work, it's a lot of digging. Moving dirt is weirdly expensive. And also there's a lot of pipes that have to go in the ground, like I said, additional pumps that'll have to be installed with additional piping, air piping, and things like that.
And your RFP does a line item breakdown of each one of the costs for that, is that accurate?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, we actually have a full breakdown of exactly how many cubic yards they're predicting of concrete and what they're predicting that's gonna cost.
Great.
Yeah.
And tonight, again, we're just, you're just asking us for approve the 2.6 million.
We're actually asking for approval both, just so we don't
Okay.
have to come back
Okay.
later to get that second approval, since we had that number ready.
Thank you very much.
Any questions? Mayor Pro Tem?
2 questions. Just looking at kind of your timeline, some of these items, including like the bubble mixing system, are 9-month lead time. Is that firm or is it just an estimate?
It
right
is
now?
an estimate, we're hoping it's gonna be less, vendors tend to give you their conservative because they don't wanna agree to anything sooner. A lot of the work can get done before that equipment has to be operational, like I said, a lot of it's concrete, digging, installing pipes, so you
Yeah.
can kinda drop this equipment last time, but, lead times on these items are pretty long. And it's better than we've seen in the last few years.
That's a good point. The
And-
orders that we made recently, they've been doing a lot better.
Yeah.
Bringing them in at a reasonable time. There's a few ancillary things like power transformers that are a year and a half.
Mhm.
And we're not sure why, but some of this more standard equipment is better.
And then the second thing, Is there a reason to use a guaranteed max price as opposed to other contract forms?
Well, we started with the progressive design build with the GMP process, so that we're kind of locked into it at this point. It's the purpose for this was a good balance of bringing the contractor team in, and to facilitate, help during the design process. That actually has been very successful for us. The contractor has been very engaged, and sometimes more so than the consulting engineer has in providing good input, and providing areas where we can save costs. And but you reach a point where for us to move ahead as a municipality, we need to lock it down. And we have the ability in our contract to off-ramp at this point if we need to. It is in line with what we had planned and budgeted for this project over a couple of year period.
Thank you.
So would the capital for this be earmarked for 2025?
And
In our
6.
and 6?
Yeah.
Okay. Can you break out the dollars for each
Well,
year?
no, I'm not right now. I don't have those in front of me. Do you have?
Do you know how
yeah,
much
that
was
would-
budgeted for
So-
25?
So typically we will take, and I actually don't know off the top of my head, but I can pull it up. We typically budget the entire capital project amount in 1 year, and then we'll do a rollover for anything that doesn't get spent. Because it
Okay.
is often really difficult to say, like, if you got a project that's gonna take 2 or 3 years, it's better to go ahead and account for it and allocate it. If we haven't, and sorry, I don't have it in front of me. If there's an adjustment that needs to be made, we'll do that at mid-year after you've approved that contract. But yes, we typically budget that all in one fiscal year, and then we'll roll over whatever still needs to happen.
So we'll assume it's in
We will
2025, the whole
assume that
amount.
the
it'll
entire
roll.
amount
Okay.
is coming out of the budget.
Okay, great.
Just one question, and I'm sure we went over this the last time you guys presented, because it was thorough, but can you remind me of like the longevity of these updates, like how we foresee this, I mean, just with the scale of this project and expense, like how is it gonna, follow along with growth of Berthoud, and how many years do you see until renovations or updates like this would be needed again, if ever?
Wanna handle that?
Yeah, so, this is one step of lots of projects that are unfortunately gonna be happening at the wastewater plant. And none of them are gonna be cheap, just none of them ever are. So this is really driven by regulation, not for growth purposes. The state's coming out with stricter regulations for nutrients. We discharge everything that comes into the wastewater plant, gets treated, and then ends up in Little Thompson River. And that's what we're having to do, is try to figure out how do we get those limits that are being discharged in the Little Thompson River more stringent, and that's what's driving this project. So, there's Reg 85 and Reg 31, which are, we know we're gonna have to eventually deal with. At the plant tour we talked about, we are on extended permit right now. So our permit expired in 2019. And so we're, in 2019, we said our permit's expiring, can you guys renew it to the state? And they said, yeah, we'll get back to you, and we've kind of been stuck there. And we know in that next permit is gonna be these stringent requirements. And so it's preparing for that, so that way we're not hit with by the way, you have to meet these limits, and we can't. We're also gonna be collecting credits, because we're reaching those limits before the limits are actually there. So that's giving us credit. So if there's anything else if we need to get it even lower, we have time that we can say, well, we've been hitting these lower limits before we're even required to.
We're overperforming.
Yes.
And when's it a good estimate on when we'd be in full compliance with those state regs?
It really, once this project's complete, we will be in compliance with those regs, but when those regs will be applied is anyone's guess.
I also think part of your initial question was referring to longevity of the work that we're doing right here. The durable equipment, like the blowers and the aerators and everything, those lifespans, it's a rough environment. They can be 10 years, 15. If you get 20 years out of a piece, of operating machinery, that's pretty good. A lot of the money, over half, is excavation, it's concrete, it's piping in the ground. There's no, I mean, that's got, quote, a design life, but we're building this so that won't need to be replaced. So the equipment will need to be addressed at some point in the distant future. And then the other aspect of it is, like Savannah says, this is not a capacity project per se. There are components in it that are being built in order to facilitate future capacity, but we're not changing the rating of our treatment plant with this project. So the next project, Phase 1B, will add 1 million gallon per day capacity to the plant.
Yeah, we're a 2 million a gallon day plant right now. We average about 1.3 million gallon. Once we hit 1.4, that's 70% capacity, and by state regulation, we need to start designing for that expansion. They wanna make sure we're not at 100% capacity before we're trying to expand. So, that'll be sooner than later.
No, that helped answer my question, Lon, thank you.
Other questions? That was great. Yeah, I'm gonna open it up to the public real quick, just in case anyone in the audience likes to speak to wastewater. All right, I'll close public, bring it back to the board. Anyone like to move on this?
I'll move. I move to approve the early work package to authorize immediate procurement of long lead equipment, approve change order number 2 to establish the guaranteed maximum price for the Berthoud WRF Phase 1A project, and authorize the town administrator to execute the associated contract amendments and proceed with implementation of the project in accordance with the approved scope and schedule.
Is there a second? Second. All right, trustee Wing has moved on this, trustee Ayers has seconded. Clerk, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Mayor Pro Tem Murphy,
Yes.
Trustee Albrecht,
Yes.
Trustee Wing,
Yes.
Trustee Ayers,
Yes.
Trustee Hardy,
Yes.
Mayor Karspeck.
Yes. Thank you both very much. And thank you for that
You're welcome.
tour as
Yeah.
well. That was really,
Yes, of course.
wish we could open it to the public sometime, you can see, everyone can see how bugs really, all this is done naturally, it's pretty interesting.
Actually, Mike Murphy did say he'd love to have the public out, and we can work on scheduling a tour if anybody wants to
That'd
see.
be really cool.
It looks like Willy Wonka's chocolate factory, but it's definitely not, so.
All right, getting close here. Next we'll, okay, next is amendment of ordinance 847 regarding a waiver of certain fees, also a public hearing. And this will be introduced by Community Development Director Ann Johnson.
Good evening. So the agenda item tonight is to seek your approval of ordinance 1335. This is a direct outcome of the Housing Diversity Plan. And on June 10th, there was a work session, and we had a lot of good conversation about the fiscal impact of making any changes to ordinance 847, what that would look like if we stayed the same, go to 5, 10, 15, 20 permits. You all were leaning towards 10. Safe Built, our third-party building permit vendor, was in the audience at that moment in time, and they also made a commitment to waive their fees for 10 as well. And again, so what is being presented to you tonight is ordinance 1335. The language of ordinance 847 is exactly the same, except instead of 2, it's raising it to 10 a year. Again, this is for nonprofit tax-exempt organizations. And in your packet, it does show again the 2, 5, 10, 15, 20 number and what that impact is. And what's interesting to note is one of the goals, the long-term goals of the Housing Diversity Plan, well, a short-term goal is to identify where there might be funding sources to develop a land and water bank program. And a long-term goal then is to actually implement that water bank program. DOLA and I have, the Division of Local Affairs for the state, and I have been having conversations because they like the concept of a water bank, and they are working on a potential funding for creative ideas like that because of Berthoud. And we're also looking at some federal, or not federal government, but national trusts and philanthropic organizations that look towards environmental impacts and housing. So we will be looking at those other organizations. That takes a long time to cultivate not only a local and a state organization and philanthropic organization, it's gonna take years to cultivate a relationship with a national philanthropic organization that would want to even consider funding something like that for the town of Berthoud. So that's why that is a long-term goal. But if you look on your page, if we go to 10, and exclusive of the water that's needed for those 10 homes, so that's $250,000, including the water, and these are at today's costs. Including the water, then that would bump it to $500,000. So let's say that you all went with that 10 at $500,000 a year. And then in 5 years, we were able to develop a stream of funding to help us offset that at at $250,000. Then we could come back to you and say, we've developed our water bank. We don't have to do that 250. So now what we can do is we can double the 10, and at your $500,000 commitment, now have 20 homes. So by looking at the full picture of housing, we're trying to identify where we can supplement these funds as well. Another way, and this has nothing to do with the conversation tonight, so don't let this confuse things. If we are able to partner with developers, such as in Harvest 47, that developer, out of their 27 lots that they had approved, they are giving those lots to Habitat for Humanity. So if we can start cultivating some altruism with our existing developers to donate during their development, then that's also going to strengthen that whole land bank concept. We could completely skip the land bank, and those donations would go directly to an organization. And I just mentioned Habitat because they are the ones that were the beneficiaries of that particular donation. So there are a lot of things that we will be doing as part of this housing diversity plan outcome. And some of that is going to require developers to also come to the table and want to participate. But this is our, an idea that you all discussed last time we met. And the concept before you is an amendment of Ordinance 847 by upping it from 2 to 10. And that is the only change in Ordinance 1355. And that concludes staff's presentation. I did draw it out just a little bit because we have some time to get to 8:10. Yep, so if you have any questions, I'm here to ask them, and I do know we may have individuals in the audience that want to speak.
Thank you. Trustees, questions for Director Johnson?
This is just it's a little out of scope, but it's within the realm of persons of lower income for the town of Berthoud. As you look north, as you look south, as you look east, as you look southeast, if you look northeast, there are just today, if you drive around, there are massive projects with multifamily that look like apartments. Could you say in a simple term, again, because it falls within this universe of low-income housing or providing housing for low income, is there a simple explanation for that, or is it just so complex we just can't go there right now.
An explanation for.
There's just so much housing going on everywhere else except to the west of us. Right now, massive units are being built, and they look like apartments, I'm assuming they're apartments. And we keep coming around with the discussion about providing for low-income people, and I just don't see hardly any of, I don't know that there's any new projects going on for Berthoud. And I'm just looking for the why behind that, if there's a simple answer, there may not be.
Sure, well, there could be lots of complicated answers. I'll try to keep to the simple, and Administrator Kirk can jump right on in as well with more history than I have in Berthoud. There will be apartments that have been approved at the southwest corner of Weld County Road or Larimer County Line Road and State Highway 56 or Mountain Avenue. Those were approved as part of the farmstead development, and those will be apartments right there on that corner. So some multifamily is happening or will be happening in Berthoud. We have not had applications made in the town of Berthoud for any other multifamily dwellings. We have some townhomes that have been done in Gateway. We have some small lot development. We have paired homes, or the older term is a duplex. We have that in Berthoud. We just haven't seen an interest in Berthoud to develop multifamily.
And why would that be?
I can't tell you why. Some of it could be political climate. Some of it could be they can't make the dollars work. There are so many reasons why. I can't tell you from a developer's perspective why that may be.
Thank you very much.
Other questions? All right, thank you. I'll open up to the audience. Would you like to speak to this? Please.
Good evening, Tiffany Brody. I live at 2734 Southwind Road here in Berthoud. I'm the Executive Director for Berthoud Habitat for Humanity, and I just appreciate the opportunity to speak to this ordinance yet again. And this evening, I really want to share a little bit more information, as I thought it would be helpful, about the people, right? The people that become habitat homeowners. And so as you consider this ordinance, I just want to clear up, oftentimes there's a misunderstanding or a misperception about who we are and what we do. A lot of people think maybe that we're multifamily or LIHTC or Section 8 voucher housing, and we're not. We really do offer true home ownership. So in terms of the individuals that fall within that area median income of whom we approve into our program, that 40 to 80%, just to put it into perspective. So these homeowners, this could be a server at a local restaurant. My family and I just ate at Mi Cocina. It could be them, right, that qualified. Maybe they make $40,000 annually. They could work at Hayes Market. I looked up some average salaries in the community. They could be town staff. One of our town staff recently closed on a home with Fort Collins Habitat. We have a current homeowner that used to be at the front desk for the town and served for many years, as I understand it. It could be a registered nurse making $80,000 annually who has either a son or a daughter. It could perhaps be your child's second grade teacher at Ivy Stockwell, sorry about that, who has 2 children and earns $91,000 a year after many years of serving in that school. Another hypothetical scenario, and I looked up the salaries on this, could be a recently hired EMT or firefighter for our Berthoud Fire Protection District, earning just shy of $72,000, along with a spouse that may be hired for that part-time customer service specialist position that the library is hiring for, and their 3 children, equating to a gross annual household income of $89,000. They all qualify. So we're talking about our neighbors, we're talking about the individuals in this room, we're talking about maybe some of you. So I just hope that painting a little bit more clear picture of the individuals that we serve and the impact that we can make might be helpful to you, because they truly are teaching our children. They're working alongside us right here in the community, and they really, maybe they're smiling as you walk into Hayes Market and so forth. So we just want to do everything we can, as you know, to make and further that impact. So I just, on behalf of Habitat for Humanity and all of the people that we serve in the community, and the ones that don't even know yet that they will be future homeowners, I just want to thank you for your support.
Thank you.
very much. Is there anyone else wishes to speak to this? All right, I'll close public comment, bring it back to the board. How do we feel? Anyone want to speak to this?
We had a great discussion at our last meeting. I thought it was very well, and it's nice to see us moving forward, and we bumped up the number, and it seems like it's just all positive.
Yeah, really. I agree.
Yeah, no, I've been, I guess, wanting this change for a long time. And I look at it as us throwing down the challenge to Habitat and our partners to really step up their game, that we are in support of affordable housing here. I wanted to thank Director Johnson for putting this together, as well as pursuing land banking and water banking and all the other avenues we've talked about in the future. And I'd like to thank Safe Built as well for stepping up and waiving their fees on this. So I'm fully supportive of this. I'm excited about taking this first step.
Awesome. Good. Yeah.
Supportive. I want to say I'm excited about Harvest designating land and that altruistic spirit. Thank you for bringing that up, because I think that is contagious, especially in a town like this. So that makes me excited that what we're doing and what local developers are doing is all coming together. So thank you.
Yeah, I think this is exciting. I know you have brought this up for a while. I'm very grateful for the committee that was created, and what an awesome outcome. I mean, moving from 2 to 10 is pretty awesome. So I'm very supportive too. If there's nothing else, would anyone like to move on this?
I'll move. I'll move to approve ordinance 1355, an ordinance of the town board of the town of Berthoud to promote ownership for persons of lower income in the town of Berthoud, Larimer, and Weld counties by expanding ordinance 847.
Second. All right. Mayor Pro Tem has moved on this. Trustee Hardy has seconded. Clerk, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Trustee Ayers?
Yes.
Trustee Albrecht?
Yes.
Trustee Hardy?
Yes.
Trustee Wing?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Murphy?
Yes.
Mayor Karspeck?
Yes. All right. Thank you very much. Very exciting. Final item tonight is just an update. This is informational only. Other than an update regarding the unplatted parcel between Hillsdale subdivision, 2nd and 5th, and the Heritage Ridge subdivision. Mr. Cook, did I say that right?
I think that's right, yeah. So, thank you, Mayor Karspeck and trustees. You received an email last week from a local resident who lives in the Hillsdale subdivision south of the high school. This has been an ongoing issue, and I've communicated with her on many occasions over the last several years. There is a strip of land that exists between the Heritage Ridge subdivision and the Hillsdale subdivision. If you're standing on Kansas Avenue, that's at the very southern end of town, it connects those two neighborhoods just on the very north edge of Hillsdale Park. You can look down, and I included some pictures in your packet. I apologize we don't have them with the screen today, but there's about a 5-foot strip. Clerk Smart, yeah, that would be great. And it may be easy enough just to drop kind of into the Google Street View. You can get a good idea. It is a very long, extended stretch of unplatted land. And as I understand it from our engineering surveying team, when one of those the two subdivisions were platted and surveyed using different survey monuments, and either there was an error in the survey or those two survey monuments don't actually line up in the right ways. And so when Heritage Ridge was platted, the legal lot lines on the western edge of that subdivision stop 5 feet short, plus or minus, of the legal lot lines to the subdivision to the west, which is the Hillsdale neighborhood. And it created this kind of no man's land that exists on the map, but that doesn't have a legal owner or a legal description. and that now is bordered on either side by fences in both neighborhoods. And there are, I think, 2 or 3 properties that have kind of absorbed that into their yard. They just chose to fence it in and make it part of their space. And the rest of them, their fence lines are on the legal property lines as surveyed. And so that no man's land has become kind of a weed and trash nuisance, and our public works crews do their best to try and keep up with that. They go out there a couple of times a year to keep weeds and grass down. There's a great difference between the two subdivisions. They both actually kind of drain back to that space. And so there may be an opportunity to put a concrete trickle pan, like a gutter basically, through that stretch that would reduce maintenance or eliminate most of the maintenance through there, and then also help if there is any flooding or standing water issues. We've not received any complaints except from the one particular homeowner, and she does have some standing water in her backyard on a regular basis. I believe a lot of that is actually coming from her yard. You can kind of see how the water moves in some of the pictures she's provided. But again, this is kind of an ongoing strange issue that the town is kind of accepted. We could remap some of these lots and readjust the legal boundaries, but people have fences and yards, and do you give it to the homeowner to the west or to the east? Do you split the difference and hope somebody absorbs it and moves their fence? If they don't, then what do you do with the property? It's kind of a complicated problem. It doesn't really have a good solution. From our perspective, at the staff standpoint, the best solution is to make any improvements we can in that area that reduce long-term maintenance and improve any kind of potential drainage issues through there that may exist. And then for the town to just kind of assume responsibility for it, as you know, the mapping efforts that were done for these 2 subdivisions were approved by the town, but not lined up. And really, frankly, I don't think anybody even knew until the very southern end of that subdivision got constructed that this is Canyonlands, the white house on the right side of your screen. I apologize, the public can't see it. We have some tech issues tonight, but that's Canyonlands that runs north-south on the western edge of Heritage Ridge. Almost every single house on that street was constructed or under construction before I think anybody at the town heard about it or realized that there were these issues. A lot of times it's because at the time fences weren't installed until after the houses were built. So the houses are getting constructed, they're done, and then fences are going up, and they're going up on this property line that's off. So in the short term, our goal is to continue to have our public works crews maintain that area the best they can, to try and keep weed growth down. If there are drainage issues, which we have not personally identified during a storm event, although I have seen pictures from that particular homeowner after it, or very shortly after a storm event where there's some standing water on the backside of their yard. We can certainly address those as best we can. But again, I think the most likely outcome is that we make some improvements there to concrete that stretch. It is a very long stretch. I think there's 42 houses that back up to that. So you just kind of imagine, a row of 20 plus houses on either side of that. There's no easy way to give that property back to the neighbors, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I'm happy to answer questions where I can. That's kind of our short-term and kind of long-term plan.
It's almost kind of like that situation where we had like the little weird triangle pieces.
Right.
Yeah.
That
So that's one we've been working on for several years now. That is nearing, I think, the place where we're gonna be able to eliminate those. But the old Hillsdale subdivision, when it was originally platted, included these kind of diamond-shaped parks that the houses backed up to. It's kind of an interesting, unique design. And that was included in the first phase of the development, but then as I read the history, it appears that the western half of the subdivision, when it was built, it was replatted. And so the line that ran through those diamonds never got continued on the other side. And so it created these kind of strange triangle, diamond-shaped lots that actually extend through two properties. So they have to be now split and given back to those properties. And they are 100% contained within existing backyards. So there are some legal lots that the town actually owns that exist and have been landscaped and fenced in people's backyards in the Hillsdale subdivision. And we've been working for a couple of years to try and sort that out. There was some kind of weird, complicated survey issues there. Then we realized that all of the lots are actually the same legal lot, even though they're all disconnected. And so, and then we needed to do surveying, and so we had to coordinate with the homeowners because we had to get into their backyard, and several of them never responded to us, to many repeated attempts to kind of get to connect with them. It was driven by one particular homeowner who rightly said, hey, wait a minute, I have a lot that the town owns in my backyard. How do I sell that in the future? Or do I sell that with my house? Or am I selling it? Does that not count when I sell my house? It's because I don't own it, even though it's inside my yard. So, you know, I think we're nearing the end of that issue. And what I've told the homeowner on this particular issue, the kind of no man's land, is that, you know, we'll work through those issues when we finalize this other Hillsdale problem, and in the short term, we'll try to continue to maintain.
It looks like she's taking out some of the fence already, so she went.
That is not the homeowner who has who's reached out with concerns or complaints.
So it'd be still ideal if that could be a trail. I mean, or just some kind of pedestrian connection up and down, but that's just not happening.
It would absolutely be very much of a fence canyon. It's very narrow. I think it's between 4.5 and 5 feet wide. And it would be.
So is this an issue with the plotting being done from the development on the left or the development on the right?
I'm not sure that I know the answer to that question. We asked our surveyor through our prior contract engineering firm to look at it. And they didn't feel like they could really make that determination clearly. They did believe it should have been caught when Heritage Ridge did it, but that the mistake could have been Hillsdale. I've also been told, though we don't have any record, that there's a belief that there may be a gas line there. The utilities have said they don't have a gas line there. I've been told that there's a gas line through there. So I don't know. That's something we'll dig into a little bit more as we get a little farther along.
So question, have we priced out what it would cost to concrete that stretch and make it a drainage?
We have some rough estimates just based purely on concrete flat work costs, but this is very unique in that it's hard to access. There's long stretches that are, you know, between these fences. It's gonna be a very unique construction project, so it's probably gonna be more expensive than just kind of basic flat work. It won't be cheap.
Why can't we just like decide who gets what and then just say, okay, everybody on the west side, you know, get 2 feet more worth of yard?
I think that would be great if every homeowner along that stretch said, hey, I'd love to have it. I think there may be homeowners who say, I have no interest in it. I don't want the land. I don't want to move my fence. I'm not taking care of it. And I don't want you to give it to me because I don't want to have to maintain it. I don't want anybody to call me that the weeds weren't cut. And you know, if you give everybody 2 feet, who's gonna maintain it, right? Who's gonna cut the weeds? Are we gonna be out there? Is it gonna be a constant code enforcement issue because the person who owns the 2 feet behind their fence refuses to cut their weeds? For me, I see that being a bigger problem long-term than the town just assuming responsibility for this kind of no man's land, pouring concrete to reduce or eliminate maintenance and improve drainage and kind of calling it good at that point, if that makes sense. And I don't know that that's the right solution, but I think that's kind of our intended plan at this point.
I mean, just personally, if I was a homeowner, offering 2 more feet's not insubstantial, maybe. But you're saying that some might not want the land.
Yeah, and just the cost to move your fence might be prohibitive. You don't want to spend.
You don't have to move your fence.
Well, you don't have to, but if you assume responsibility of the land, now you are obligated to maintain it, and you just there might be no reason. Like, why would you want it?
The properties on the left look like it's been there a lot longer, their fences are a lot further along, like maybe disappeared.
And
versus the one that's brand new on the right, definitely don't wanna move that, but I think the ones on the left would be more likely to get 4 feet.
What, are we talking like 100, 200 yards?
No, we're talking like a quarter of a mile.
42 houses, really?
something like that. It's a long stretch. It's more than,
Can you do an aerial view?
There is,
I'll measure it. I could be over quoting it, but it's not a short stretch.
we did get that picture in our agenda.
It's lengthy.
I'll do a quick Google map measure here and.
And my comment would be, it feels like short-term and a Band-Aid, but I'd like to move towards a permanent fix.
Yeah, I think it's probably roughly between a quarter and a third of a mile. It's like 1,800 feet.
Well, and not being an expert on drainage, could we do something that's more simple, like gravel or rock? To remove
Nothing's the weeds.
Yeah, I think my
some weeds,
intention with concrete is that it would nearly eliminate, weed and grass maintenance.
Sure.
There are a couple of homeowners that have already absorbed this into their yard.
Right.
So that's a problem because that creates that's a physical restriction to being able to make one continuous concrete stretch. So it's gonna be a messy problem.
Well, if you go to concrete it and they've already got their fence and landscaping and everything on that space, right?
Right.
Now,
Oh, I'm sorry, I mismeasured to the wrong street. Let's see.
we had,
It goes just a little bit north of Sage, which is, I don't know, roughly 1,200 feet plus or minus.
What do you estimate, just top of your head, what that would cost? I mean, it seems like we gotta make a plan, just get it over with, so if we chip away at it year after year, or
Yeah, I mean, I think it's probably in the, $50,000 to $100,000 range.
If the town is taking care of this stretch, and if the town builds some sort of concrete gutter system, let me ask this, who owns it?
Legally, no one, as far as I know.
It's just, so it's basically, so the town doesn't own it,
No.
so
Because
we have to buy it
strangely,
from-
it's almost like it doesn't exist. I mean, that's the way I understand it. I'm not a surveyor, but it's almost like, legally from a mapping standpoint, it's just this weird gap between maps that nobody owns.
So would the town consider it like a easement or something? The town wouldn't have to purchase it
Well,
because it doesn't exist.
kind of, yeah. I mean, I guess it would be interesting if somebody wanted to try and come lay claim to it.
wouldn't the county do the weeds, cause wouldn't that technically be theirs if it's not ours?
Well, that's an interesting question too. I don't know, and I'll be honest, we have not dug into the kind of the weird legal framework of this, but that's certainly something we could do as part of that. And I think certainly before we spend any money concreting anything, I think we'd want to be confident that this is the right thing to do both legally and operationally long-term. We could certainly reach out to every homeowner adjacent to it and just say, hey, the first one that says they want the 4 feet behind them can have it. But I'm not even sure that's really that simple. I think it requires effectively a replat of the entire side of one subdivision or both sides, which I think is challenging in and of itself.
I think what you're showing on the screen is half of what it is. If this red is accurate.
No, that red, yeah, oh, that's correct. Clerk's Moore is only showing you a portion of it
Yeah.
because it is split. It actually, the county GIS map draws it in as a box, so you can click on it. But there's no ownership data, there's no legal description. So like, again, it's like from a legal standpoint, I don't think it exists.
Just get on one side and just push the whole subdivision over.
Put a for sale sign on it.
Just put some straps attached to a few trucks and just pull the whole subdivision over.
Alright.
So that is the update as it is, such as it is. I know there's not a lot of answers there. It's kind of baffling to me. And I don't think there's any kind of clear, easy solution. If the board would like us to prioritize trying to give the property back, we can start down that road and see what that would take. I think that would be immensely complicated.
So the complaints, are they coming all from one side or?
There's only one complaint I've ever received.
Oh.
Or I've only received complaints from one individual along this entire stretch.
So my thoughts on your previous comment, oh man, this is complicated, because if you open it up to the homeowners on both sides, and 3 of them claim it, well now, if they build their fences all the way, if no one else wants it, and the town decides to put a concrete gutter on it, now you're gonna have to gutter, have a 50-foot blank space, and then gutter again, and then have a 50-foot blank space.
And I don't think that makes sense. It's like, we're either gonna we're gonna kind of assume it all, or we're going to, and it would be easier, I think, from a plating standpoint, to just create one long legal lot that the town, kind of declares ownership of. I mean, I don't know exactly even how that works legally, and Aaron would have to help us through that. Then it would be to try and move all the legal lots adjacent to it. And like you said, I mean, let's say it takes, with the triangle issue that, with these kind of weird remnant triangles that the town actually legally owns, in the Hillsdale subdivision, I mean, it's taken like a year just to get homeowners to engage and interact with us consistently. And so, let's say we had to do that with 30 or 40 property owners, and maybe it takes us a year to get, all of them, but let's optimistically, to everybody to agree to the plan. But by the time we actually get something done, 3 of those houses have sold, now the new people don't agree to the plan. I mean, it just, you can kind of imagine the complexity of trying to coordinate all of those together. Again, I think from a practical standpoint, it seems simpler to me that the town would correct the mapping, create a legal lot where one does not currently exist, and then assume ownership of it.
My other concern, is there any, I don't know the statutes about this, but is there any, because some of these properties have used this space, is there an ownership by use clause or anything that we might have to worry about for some?
It might be. I think none of these have existed for more than 8 years or so, and I'm not an expert in that, but I don't think they could kind of take adverse possession of it. I don't know, is it 17 years or something?
18.
18?
Yeah.
So these homes haven't existed that long. Now the ones on the west side may have, but I don't think any of them have actually assumed it into their property, because they built on their legal property lines. So the ones that have assumed it or absorbed it into their fences are the ones to the east in Heritage Ridge, and those are all newer properties.
Could we perhaps extend, like a survey to that group and ask them if there's unanimous support to absorb it into their properties, then we can move forward with trying to acquire that land for those property owners on the east side.
Yeah, if we only wanted to do one or the other, that would be a simpler process.
And I think, like you said, if the ones on the right are the ones that have been taking that land, and then, I mean, even if it was unanimous and we could, find a way to plat that land to give to those property owners, even if we were to give them a stipend for new fencing, it'd be cheaper.
Yeah, it may be easier for us
Maintenance.
to pay to replace the fence entirely.
Right, and that's kind
and
of what
maybe a
I'm
little
thinking
cheaper.
is it would be cheaper probably for us to have a one-time expense of, each homeowner gets a certain amount to re-fence. And we don't have maintenance fees or maintenance cost on that land anymore, or have to worry about it going forward.
That fence looked very uniform, if the developer might
It
have
is.
done the whole stretch.
The developer did the whole stretch. The exterior fences, the kind of the fences that border open space or the edge of the neighborhood were done by the developer, so they're all the same. So it would be, from that perspective, that might be a clean way to handle it, and again, the only properties that have absorbed it into their backyard already are ones on the Heritage Ridge side, so we could start there and see, and if we could kind of quickly get responses from everybody that they were okay with that, that might be an easier thing to do.
Yeah, I like that too. And
Yeah, that's not a bad
it's kind of
suggestion.
good news, at least I'd like to hear that I had more property than I thought versus.
Right, yeah, that's,
Yeah.
Can I
it's
get a
always
little bit of
exciting.
cash to fix my fence?
Yeah.
Win-win for those
Yeah.
guys
Versus
and
them
the
taking
town.
property.
It'll save us a lot of money and time if that worked out.
Yeah, and I
Reverse
don't,
eminent domain.
Right.
it wasn't designed to be part of their drainage, although I think it does function that way a little bit.
That might be a good strategy, start there first, survey.
Yeah.
Okay.
If I could just recap what I heard, if this map is true and east is east and north would be up top, or west would be left, east would be right. Again, that developer put in that whole fence, and that's the side we're saying we would give the space to, the housing development on the right? Is that what I'm hearing?
That's what I think we're suggesting.
So that whole entire fence,
That entire stretch
we
would be
would kind of say
replaced,
come up.
moved or replaced.
Okay.
And I think we would want to kind of force it to be absorbed into their yards. It would probably be similar in cost or maybe even less expensive to re-fence that entire stretch than to concrete. And I don't think we want to leave it outside of their fences because we want them to be kind of forced to take care of it if they're going to accept it. So I think if, part of the deal would be to correct this issue, we would get them all to agree that we're gonna kind of modify that line, make sure that's all within their property boundaries, and then we would pay to move the fence all at once so that every single one of those ends up being within the fenced boundaries of their lot.
You
So
probably
that
have to
there's no
pay-
more maintenance issues.
You're gonna have to pay for landscaping too.
I would assume
guess.
that there's probably some truth to that, and we may want,
Sprinkler heads.
we could offer, to just put,
Gravel.
rock down, landscape it, put, landscape fabric, border, rock,
yeah,
and
yeah.
just leave it alone. And then they could do whatever they wanted to after that, but we could kind of prepare some kind of basic improvement.
Yeah, like
Agreement.
we could start there, and if that goes south, then we can look back at the concrete idea too, but.
Yeah.
We'll end up having to have,
Has to be unanimous.
30 or 40 agreements, and they'll all have to be unanimous.
Okay.
And they'll all have to be the same. We can't agree to, it'll have to be a, hey, everybody agrees to this or nothing. We won't be negotiating deals, but I mean,
So that could be like a door hanger, and then maybe a neighborhood meeting with you.
Yeah.
And so everyone had a couple opportunities to hear it.
Mhm.
Yeah. Cool.
and there may just be folks who ignore us, and that'll be fine. That's part of the deal.
Would you consider that?
We
support?
chase residents all the time that way.
All right, thank you. You all good on this so far?
That might be true.
Okay, let's move on now to reports. We'll start off with trustee Wing.
Yeah, first of all, I just thought that the fireworks was outstanding, and again, handling that many people, and I know you're gonna give us a number, but, man, I just thought it was smooth. We had a conversation about a few things maybe we could improve on, but, quality of the fireworks, man, I always hear you talk about their small town in Berthoud and how you love it, and I just don't know how you go to something like that and just don't feel, it just oozed Berthoud and the patriotism and all the kids running around. I mean, it took me back to, the 70s, the 60s. That's what it felt like. So just huge kudos to the town and all you guys should all be proud. And, Chris coming up with the idea of fireworks for Berthoud in general, that was magical. It's really great. So certainly made me proud of the town and everything that came off with that. Second, so we've got 1.3 million gallons, I think it's a week?
A
Not
million gallons a day.
A day coming out of that waste treatment. So that's 1 million gallons of water we could turn into non-pot. I'm not saying there's no expense to that, but that's not an insignificant amount of water when we're talking about such a shortage of water.
So
Some of that might be decreed down the.
yeah, so we don't have legal right to reuse all of it. So it gets kind of complicated from a water law perspective. We do have sources that are fully reusable. So the primary ones that we can reuse 100% of that wastewater effluent, or almost 100%, is some changed handy ditch shares, and then also our Windy Gap water. Our goal long-term is to use the Windy Gap water in the wintertime, because then none of it gets applied to the ground, right? And we're not irrigating outside. So then you can assume that 96% or more of that water ends up at the wastewater treatment plant. And then you can use 96% of that water that
Great.
went to the treatment plant. You could take it out of the river, store it, and then use it at a different time. So we are working on that right now to be able to store water downstream of the wastewater plant and then pump it back to town for treatment.
It seems like there'd be a real ROI on that. And we have to pencil it out,
absolutely
but
is.
I mean, liquid gold, right?
Yeah, and Windy Gap's great because you can reuse it to extinction And so what that means is
Great.
if you have 100% the first time, then you get 96% of that the second time, then you can reuse that 96%, another 96%, over and
Love
over and
it.
over again until it's
Yeah,
gone.
exactly.
And so.
That's awesome.
And it's not always 96%, depends on timing and all, I mean, it's way more complicated than I even understand, but,
So, okay, can someone explain to me how the lady came and spoke about the planning commission, the park didn't show up for Farmstead? Wouldn't that like show up on a final plat or something? How does the park just disappear? How did that
So-
process work?
I don't wanna get into a whole lot of detail, cause you are going to hear their neighborhood master plan.
Okay,
And rezoning next meeting. They do not have an approved neighborhood master plan, or I take it back, they have an approved neighborhood master plan for filing 3. They never rezoned or platted that. Am I getting that correct?
Yeah, they have an old one.
They have an old neighborhood master plan. They want to amend that neighborhood master plan because the developer's different. They have a little bit different vision. And there is park space or open space still adjacent to Newell Farm. It's just not arranged the same way that it was before. And it's not planned to be merged into the town's space, which was kind of what the original neighborhood master plan showed, that the two might merge together. But that was really conceptual anyway.
oh, it was, so it wasn't part,
It was never
definitive?
part of a definitive approval.
Oh, okay, that wasn't quite how her conversation came
I
across.
think I
Okay.
took it as that she's just concerned they're not fully thinking about the park next door. Just a larger view of how that affects the conservation.
Yeah.
And I was thinking it would have been either locked in or not, and if it was or wasn't in the old plan,
Mhm.
wouldn't that create some kind of obligation?
They are asking you to modify their neighborhood master plan. You'll have a chance to review that, and make that decision at the
Okay.
next meeting.
And then I sent an email, I don't know if y'all read it, but I just needed a little explanation, and Chris, maybe we'll have more discussion on this, but I see that with this Legacy Park, however many districts they have, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, I don't know, but for each one, it's over $1 billion. Why do they need to have debt authorization of over $1 billion for each district when they're only gonna spend 10 or 15% of that, and then mail-in ballot election? I assume, since only the developers that exist, there are no residents, the developers are the ones that did the mail-in ballot election. So any high-level Reader's Digest just explanation before maybe this gets deeper at another point?
So I think the way I see the notices, and I'm not an expert here, like each district has an approved expenditure limit. And they've kind of maxed it out in every possible thing they could spend money on. But I think it says whatever.
Mosquitoes,
Like
$65 million.
$65 million for mosquito control. Well, that's not gonna happen, but it gives them kind of ultimate flexibility. I don't know why they're drafted that way. The service plan, though, dictates that the max debt that can be issued for all districts in Legacy Park is 325 million, period, end of story. And so regardless of what they're, again, I think a lot of this is kind of legal. It's these kind of legal documentation that gives them the right to do all this stuff within those. That practically, one, they couldn't spend $65 million on mosquito control, and two, their approved service plan limits their total debt authorization to 325 million. So each district, I think there's 5 districts. Each district has a
think
max
there
of
is.
65 million, period, and the total max across all districts is 325, which is, I think, 65
So
times 5.
do we technically approve this?
Approve what? The
$5
formation
billion
documents?
of this debt authorization?
We didn't approve any of that.
So what is this? It's just, it's a sidebar
These
that
are
sits in some document that residents see, or what's the point of it?
Yes, they have to have a formation election, and there's all these documents that go along with that. That's part of the district. What the town approved and what controls their max debt
Part of the
authorization is the service plan. So their legal limit, whatever they've done here doesn't change the legal limit allowed in their service plan that the town approved,
Well, and that preceded it.
and it did.
Yeah, those were the organizational elections. So they start with a big number, it gets narrowed down at the service plan stage.
If if they were they resembled reality with each other, it just would feel better. But the service plan for my neighborhood, one of the things it says it's $1 billion that they can, and it's got these same things, except instead of 65 million, it's 100 million for mosquito control. And you're right, then there's another place that says there's a cap.
The service plan is the legal cap. So whatever they put in their initial formation documents are irrelevant, and that the service plan controls the town's approved service plan controls what their debt limit is, it controls their mill levy, it controls their governance, all the things that are outlined in those service plans.
So Christian, the documents you sent us is really what I'm referencing. Was the service plan for River Trails part of that email? Is it in there, do you know?
The service plan for Legacy Park was not included.
Not Legacy Park, River Trails.
For River Trails.
The email that Christian sent was in reference to Legacy Park. Which email are we
I
talking
think there
about?
was another one I read today, and I thought it talked about River Trails, and I thought it talked about the service agreement. Doesn't ring a bell?
It's not complete.
Yeah.
Okay, so before, would, historically in the past, has this group reviewed the service plan for a metro district before we've approved?
You are obligated by law to review and approve the service plan for a metro district.
Are you saying ahead of like a neighborhood master plan or something like that?
Like both these projects, yeah.
So
Yeah, we're required to.
Okay.
Yeah, but we don't do that first generally. We'll approve the development and then we'll go after the service plan.
So we're clear, the state law does not require a neighborhood master plan or preliminary plating in order to form a metro district. And it's not uncommon practice here or anywhere else to approve a metro district before a development plan is even approved. We do not allow that in our service plan policy. So in order to submit a metro district service plan for consideration by the town board, you have to have an approved development plan. You have to have an approved neighborhood master plan. So we changed that because, for good reason, developers come in, they say, hey, we're gonna spend $88 million on improvements that we need to be able to, help finance through this metro district. And we don't even have a plan in front of us of exactly what those improvements are going to be. That doesn't make any sense. But the law allows that, and that's not uncommon practice in other jurisdictions.
So our process is?
You must have an approved neighborhood master plan prior to having your service plan considered, so that we have a very clear idea of exactly what is planned to be built, including any regional or offsite improvements that are included in that district.
Is a master plan a subset of a service plan, or is a service plan a subset of a master plan? Or
Neither.
the
two are separate processes,
Okay.
but one has to precede the other. So
Okay,
the neighborhood master plan is totally independent
and that
of
precedes
metro
the service
districts,
plan?
but it has to be done before the service plan is considered by the town board.
And the town board approves both
Correct.
before the neighborhood starts?
Correct.
Okay, that's great. Thank you for clarifying that.
No problem.
That's all I have.
Yeah, those are great questions.
No, all I've got to report is just kind of a.
I had one more thing, and he's gotta touch on it. This is super quick. The Breckenridge event, I thought was outstanding. I would strongly encourage, I know it's hard in the middle of the week, I know it's hard to get away. Man, there were just golden nuggets all over the place up there, and the sessions were, again, some were not good, and some were off the charts. And the keynote speakers, there was lessons to take away from each one. So I thank the town for sending us and paying for it. It was great. I thought it was valuable, certainly networking opportunities. So kudos for letting us go to something like that and supporting that.
You guys let yourselves go, so we're happy to help facilitate.
Great. Well, I just want to kind of recap my experience at CML, and again, thank ourselves for letting me go. Anyway, if there was an overall theme at CML this year, I would say it had to do with artificial intelligence. A lot of people talking about AI and how it can make your job easier. I'm sure you've been seeing the ads on, getting ChatGPT or Scribe to write your proposal or fill in an application. But that's just kind of my biggest takeaway was AI was very big this year. One of the things I went to was economic development. they use the Windsor website as kind of the poster child for what your town should be doing and looking at for economic development. So, I just kind of wanted to point that out, that maybe we should kind of maybe check out what they've got going on and compare it to how we've got it, and, you know, flat it and copy and whatever, flat it ourselves or flat it or something. But economic development is definitely a talk as well, trying to balance out that to your rooftops, and we've all discussed that here. We need more rooftops before we see more of that happening. There were some items on the arts where some people, like Manitou Springs, actually passed a 0.3% sales tax, kind of like our 1% sales tax that they spend strictly on arts in their community. Reason why the arts came up is because it kind of helps keep that small town feel and that sense of community when your community invests in arts. So Breckenridge funds their arts through a oh god, I messed up my notes. $2.5 million out of the general fund. So they've got a pretty large budget there. So, but I still like to make sure that we're keeping an eye on it when we're doing our planning and all that, that we are definitely keeping that as one of our options as building, making sure that the developments are putting in some creative art district stuff. Oh yeah, I've got one here for Christian. I don't know if you need it. You're probably already aware of it because you're always on top of technology. But one of the vendors I went to was called Doc Access. I don't know if you know about that?
We actually recently implemented a trial on the website.
Cool.
So if you go to the website, it's not active on all of the pages, but if you do look in the trustee archives, the ordinances and resolutions, you can see how it works, and it can convert it over to a different format so that, say, a screen reader can read scanned documents rather than having to go through and manually remediate each document. And it's
Okay.
also at a fraction of the price.
So we are doing that so that all our stuff's becoming searchable.
Exactly.
Even
That's
handwritten
exactly
ones?
correct. So it's ADA compliance.
Yes.
So not
That's the
necessarily
biggie. We're making sure it's all ADA
searchability, but
compliant.
it will become ADA compliant, which is
And
the
it also,
point.
it's not just ADA, it makes it AI compliant, which I'll talk about here in another section. It's kind of cool. Middle housing, we kind of talked about that tonight. Need more land, more zones, city-owned land, for kind of the land banking, just talked about water banking, allow use by right, subsidized versus unsubsidized housing. We do allow ADUs, don't we, or do we not?
Oh,
Yes, we do, okay, that's what I thought. I thought we did. And then inclusionary zoning was another big keyword for middle housing. So some things that I think will stay on top of our agendas and stay in our communication as to how do we do this whole middle housing, getting those multifamily units and just the affordable housing type situation. Regional housing, still again, Pitkin County passed a property tax to aid in the building of attainable housing, along with working and building with partners, which we are doing with Habitat and some of our developments. So everything I found is like, we're doing this is great. So I was just really glad to kind of be at the CML conferences going, well, I'm not really learning anything new because we're kind of already doing this, but it's just neat to see how we're falling into those pieces. AI, yeah, AI, I've got a page and a half on that. The whole thing, there was actually she's the mayor pro tem that wrote this program called mytownai.net. I don't know how she was able to, she was talking about how she'd be sitting in a meeting and be doing research on stuff. And I was like, I can't do that. Because I was thinking myself through the whole thing, at least from what I can figure out. But the mytown.ai.net, you could go in and say, I want to build a house at this address. And it would say, well, yeah, that lot's available, whatever. Then you could add more to your question. And it'd say, well, here's like all this information, specific stuff. But it was basically using AI to go search your municipal code, all your PDF files, past minutes from previous board meetings. She was using it to like go, oh yeah, where was the last time we had this come up? And they had only mentioned 2 of them in the town packet, but yet her AI was able to go through old minutes and found 2 other options and gave her 4 things, so it was more accurate in completing the packet for the town trustees. So I thought it was kind of interesting, and it might be something kind of fun. It's another thing for Christian. I kept thinking, I was like, oh, here's another toy for Christian. Not that you need another one, but
Yeah, that
maybe
sounds
you
like
know,
it would be interesting.
maybe you know about it already. But even for Anne, you know, because I could see how the planners could use it, community development directors could use it to kind of take a town question and pop it in, and this thing formulates a whole page on document, writes letters, does grant writing, staff reports, quick access, text recording to podcast. So if you need to make a podcast, you could actually take the text that it finds and it'll make us crazy podcast. It sounds like 2 people talking. It's just like, whoa, that's bizarre, because
We've
did a
actually
research.
created the podcast.
Yeah, so it's AI voices taking this document of information and making a podcast so you can put it on your website.
It's pretty funny when it
So-
tries to read certain names and stuff, but actually we've run a few tests on on a podcast summary of each town board meeting, and it's pretty incredible. I'd say it's like 95% of the way there. It's pretty
Yeah,
neat.
and then one of the other things that they used it for was like, this is with Ann, I thought of, is like they needed to turn everything from per dwelling to structure. And they let AI go through the entire thing and find it all and do it for them and update the code so that it all sounded good together, so. Let's see here, I already talked about that. The other thing that I came across, and it sounds like Ann's already been in touch with Robert, that, I brought a few flyers, but, I brought this up a couple years ago when we first got into short-term rentals, about how there's software out there that's tracking all this stuff, and that we don't need to figure out how to reinvent the wheel. And I showed it to Brett and also to Will, and they were both taken back by it and all the details. And it seems pretty affordable. It's about the same prices or less than a part-time employee. But it actually could take care of all the application process for a short-term rental, track short-term rentals if you wanted to start taxing short-term rentals. It would actually generate type of an invoice or a bill to let you know how much you need to be collecting from this. It'll show you how much they're renting out the units for, how often they're renting units out for, what their gross revenues. It was incredible the detail this thing was full with. Anyway, sounds like Ann's already on board because he emailed us a couple days after the conference, and so he's at least chatting with Ann. But if anybody wants to see the flyer on it or wants to go check it out, I do have a couple extra videos here as well. But other than that, it's beautiful weather up in Breckenridge. It's always a good learning experience. Lots of good things to come back with. It's always nice to come back with a few new tricks up your sleeve for the town board, and it was exciting. I liked it. It's sad to think that it's gonna be probably one of my last few, because I've only got one more year.
Yeah.
So, unless I finagle way
We're being recorded right now, just to let you know.
Well, no, go up there myself or.
Oh, I got you,
Independent, gotta keep my university credits up.
Thought it was interesting that Boulder was on the panel for affordable housing, and they were lecturing everyone else on how great a job they're doing on affordable
About
housing.
2 million or something.
No, they have actually pretty robust.
But anyway,
programs.
that's just my thoughts and shares of CML, and wish more of you could have gone in. And definitely, if you have a chance, go for it, do it. And that's all I have.
Thank you, very good. Trustee Ayers?
I have nothing.
All right, thank you. Trustee Albrecht?
Just a couple things. Sergeant Williamson's not here, but I was gonna mention that I've been thinking a lot about community policing and just public facing opportunities to meet fire staff, police staff. We used to have safety fairs more often, and so people would get to know their emergency service personnel. I think it's time for more of that, and so I talked to the fire chief about it, and he said he would definitely come if we made him. He would love to be there. And so I think it's just time for our, especially with the tax going through for the fire department, and just, as things continue to be crazy in the world, for people to know their police officers personally and to have that community connection. And so I just wanted to put a plug in for LCSO to think about doing maybe the safety fairs we used to have in town, and partnering with the fire department. And on the heels of that, I've also been thinking a lot about how the town board and town staff could have more of that public face as well and be available in the community as a unit. Because I think a lot of us do a lot of work working with people, talking with people, but there's, you mentioned being in the parade as a group next year, but I think stuff might get thrown at us, to be honest. And think there's so
Come on.
many misconceptions about what we do and who we are as people, just because government is like the problem, you know? And so I think for us to have opportunities, I don't know if staff has thought about this at all, but even just community, like, you know, luncheons at the park, and we could have a coffee cart or something, you know, where we get to shake hands with people and have them ask us questions and our why and what we're doing and projects. I think, I don't know, I'm sure this other towns have done things like that, and it's, you know, there's a risk you're gonna have some friction, but I tend to find that when you meet someone face to face, they have a lot harder time being nasty because they realize there's a person on the other side of it that has value. So I don't know if you guys have thought about that, but I'm constantly thinking of how we can create more peace in our community and bridge the gap. So it's not us versus them, it's us as a community working, you know, together so that we can have a better result.
I made that comment to Stephanie. I said, "Oh, how come we didn't schedule any trustees in the booth at birthday day or anything like that?" And she says, "Well, you're all more than welcome to stay and come." I just, you know.
Sure.
So that's
Well,
what
maybe
I-
that's a good idea.
Yep.
What would you think about something that's more like exclusive to just hanging out
Yeah,
with
whenever
the
the town
board?
has a booth, we should all be aware of it and be invited to come and speak and hang out in the booth with Stephanie or whoever else is. gonna
Well, we
be
can
there.
divide up where we each take an hour and a half or 2
Yeah.
hours or something like that.
That's what we did in
I
the
do
past.
think that's good, but I think the venue it'll be a little more prohibitive to building relationship, I think.
Because I enjoyed spending
You know what I mean?
a couple hours at the booth, one birthday day. This last year I didn't do it because I didn't know I could.
What,
Yeah, being
Dacono,
invited would be great.
Dacono or Firestone breaks it up into, Chris and I learned about this, into developments, and they'll actually have a pizza party at a development, like, was it once a month or something, Chris? Do you remember this?
Yeah, they break it up and go to neighborhoods.
Yeah, and so it's a
Try
chance
to,
to
like,
eat
move
with the
around the
residents of the
neighborhood.
local area.
I think that's great. Here's another thing, May, if I could just add on to what you're saying. Again, this is left field, but think if there was, when Abraham Lincoln was president, the public was invited to come and talk with him, literally in the White House. It was just open, because it was their house, the White House. And I just was thinking if we did a thing where, I'll make this up, every Wednesday from 9 till 2, you could come and talk to the mayor or pro tem or a trustee, and there's a little office set up, and they could just come and vent and talk. Any legal issues with that? And we could each take, you know, again, a couple hours or one day every 2 months. Anyhow, it's a thought on connecting with the residents.
Sure. I like that idea, or maybe even having space to set up meetings, you know, because right now it's hard to nail down sometimes, like, okay, which brewery are we gonna meet at, and, you know, are they open, and same with coffee shops. And so it might be nice to have a meeting space available to the trustees to use for that kind of thing too. But
There's a room
definitely,
right there.
when you teed off on like the 70s, you know, old town feel of some of our events, I think having like a pizza party in the park or in a neighborhood, like Will was saying, I think that might help people realize we're still small town and we're still connected. No matter how much we're growing, we're still gonna behave like a small town. Does that make sense? Like, I just kind of like that. I don't know. The perception that gives the public and the access. Because they don't want to come to the meetings.
No, and
Let's be
the
honest.
coffees with the chiefs are great and the mayor, but it's the same people, because it's midday, so you gotta flex out the afternoon to get.
Do the evenings,
Yeah.
weekends.
And
We
then
just form a band.
there's that. I did have a creative idea down the road too, like maybe we could work with the Historical Society to do one of the plays, because Will and I got invited to do
Okay.
that one time, and it was horrible and hilarious. But it was fun to be part of the history of Berthoud, and like, let's, you know, maybe if we could talk them into, you know, being components of a play and just having people show up and learn their
You
history.
say something about throwing things at us. I said, why don't we form a dodgeball team? I'm sure lots of people would show up to that.
Yeah, I wouldn't do so well, but I would definitely show up. Okay, moving on, I sent an email about the Sunoco building to you guys with some ideas. I had sent that a while back ago to the mayor and Administrator Kirk. I just really want us to not move forward with designs and development and miss the mark on what that could be. And especially because I see benefit to it being several boutiques and restaurants in that space that could draw more people and be an anchor for Berthoud that people come to see. It could have that nostalgic feel, and it could be more affordable footprints for restaurants and businesses in town, so more can set up shop. I don't know where we're at with all of that, but I wanna put that plug in before it's too late, essentially. I think we have an opportunity to really create that staple for Berthoud downtown that draws people and keeps them downtown. And I think that building could be it. So I'd just like that to be considered, and if anyone has feedback on that, please feel free. And then another thing is we brought up the surveyor going out of business last meeting, and I didn't know if there was direction or follow-up, but I still think it would be beneficial if the town could work with the Historical Society to purchase the archives for citizens to view. And I also didn't know if the Historical Society has the archives for the Berthoud Bulletin, the original paper, available to the public. Because that would be also a project that I think would benefit our
Porter Health
community.
should also have those because they actually own it, Berthoud Bulletin.
What's that?
The Berthoud Bulletin name is actually owned by the Reporter Herald, it's my understanding.
Is it? Okay.
So they need to have the archives too.
Yeah, well, and wouldn't it be great if the community had access to those, like freely,
Like on a digital format.
like digitally? Yeah.
That's where the museum would really need some funding to help digitize all that sort
I
of
would think
stuff.
that'd be a library thing too.
Sure. It'd be nice to
The
vet
library
that,
should have
that out,
copies,
to know
museums should
how
have
we could do
copies.
that.
I agree.
Because that's our history, and once it's gone, once we don't have access to it, or the people that have been safeguarding it are gone, how do we get it back? And so I think that would be an asset to our future residents to know our history. So something to think about. And then I'll just touch on the Newell Farm thing. I think that, especially Trustee Wink, you've talked about concerts, the farm concert. Their entire property is based on farm concerts because Butch is a Grammy Award winning artist, and they put on farm concerts there, and then they allowed the town to purchase their property for future park uses, and that's what she was talking about. And the farm adjacent to their farmhouse would be perfect for an outdoor farm concert venue for bigger concerts, and it's right on Mountain Avenue. It'd be beautiful. And so that's my visual for that after talking to Sarah for so long. And so if the town could, I think we really should consider that. I don't think it'd even be a ton of infrastructure to set something like that up, because it feels nostalgic to be in a farm setting, and it's very Berthoud. And they could even continue to host it as long as they want to, because they're already doing something similar. So I just wanted to let you know that's what that is, and you could have your farm concert. Like, it's the property's there and the people are there. And then real quick, I keep saying that, but there's a few more things. The fire tax, there's still a lot of controversy with our downtown business owners. We need to work really hard with them to help revitalize that community and build relationship. I did spend $71 at one of the local shops downtown this week, and the fire tax was 60 cents. So I couldn't see that being a deterrent on a $71 bill personally. If I'm spending that kind of money, 60 cents doesn't seem to repel me from ever spending money there again. So I just wanted to put that out there, to put it into perspective. I think we have issues of businesses struggling because of the economy, not because the fire district needed an improvement, that's all. And then I don't know if we have plans to complete or improve the entrance to Berthoud at the highway at the two roundabouts. I see that it's coming along, but it's still lacking the luster of Berthoud's garden spot. It looks kind of neglected still, so I just wanted to touch base with staff to see if we're gonna be watering out there, or what else is gonna happen to kind of fresh up those two roundabouts that we put in.
The roundabouts themselves are native grasses and some perennial kind of native shrubs. They're fairly simple from a landscaping standpoint. They were intended to be very natural. The area all around the roundabouts are not fully landscaped. There's some trees planted, but the landscape plans that we have are conceptually significantly more than that. It's just a question of timing and funding. That area is currently maintained by CDOT, and it looks horrendous. They did finally get out and mow. I know they mowed the western side last week. The eastern side still needed to be done. And so we've been trying to coordinate with them to get them to mow that. It's interesting, we've talked about maintenance of landscaping, and this is hearsay from staff, so I don't want to directly attribute this to CDOT, but the message I basically heard was, you can landscape it and take care of it, and if you don't, we'll just probably cut down the trees so that we can make it easier to mow.
Did they put water to them?
We did.
Oh, we did,
We
okay.
installed water to the trees because, you know, we couldn't afford to fully landscape the whole entire thing, but we wanted to get the trees in as soon as we could. So we did plant trees in a lot of the areas kind of around the edge of the roundabouts. The medians approaching the roundabouts need landscape treatment. But yes, we need more landscaping and water. We do have nice landscape plans kind of ready and queued up for that. And we intend to bring you a budget for that for next fiscal year.
Awesome. Yeah, I wanted to ask what you need from us, I guess, to
Just
get
money.
those things moving forward, so
Yeah.
that's helpful. And so speaking of that, is CDOT responsible for the weeds like along Mountain Avenue, or is that gonna fall on town, or who's?
So currently, their right-of-way is their responsibility. There are portions of 56 where the town takes some maintenance responsibilities via agreement. We handle some snow removal in downtown and things like that. But, you know, weeds adjacent to 56 out on the east end of town is all within their right-of-way, should be their responsibility to maintain.
That, I think that furthers you know, I've requested before that we have the discussion about what it would require for us to take 56 from CDOT. I think we're there. I think we need to do that, like economically, and to have jurisdiction on what we put up there and do on that street and not have to go through their bureaucracy. So I think if we could, you know, and then I'll pull it back to you guys, is it okay if we have some type of preliminary study on what the impact would be to acquire 56, and it would be we'd have to take I-25 to 287 from what I recall from our last conversation.
So we have had those conversations with CDOT. We did do a preliminary maintenance analysis. It's kind of the first step in that process. We submitted that to them. They never responded, even though we prodded them many times. And then the person responsible for those decisions changed. She's also responsible for the construction project along I-25, so you can imagine that she's not devolving Highway 56 is of no interest. That's not fair. She's got a lot of things going on, and so that's not maybe at the highest level of her priorities. So, you know, we continue to try and push that conversation. The way I understand it, and I haven't been the one directly kind of handling this, the way I understand it is we submit a letter of interest to them. They request a maintenance study, which we provided back to them that kind of says this is how much you should pay us to take it, because we would expect CDOT to give us some money to maintain it over the long term. They then also do their own kind of financial analysis, and then we're supposed to kind of negotiate an agreement for the value with which CDOT will pay us to take the road. The anecdotal response we got back from CDOT is, you know, we're like $25 million apart in cost, so it's never gonna happen.
Can you
Like
explain
where
that?
we were saying, we think it's gonna take $20 million, $25 million to maintain this road over the next, you know, I don't remember exactly what the time frame was, but I think it's 20 years. And their response was like, we think it's gonna take 500,000. And so, no, you're not getting a dime from us. That was the sense of what I got. In all honesty, that was probably over a year ago, so.
So
Again,
they may pay us to take it, but it probably won't be sufficient, is the.
we will probably have to accept much less than we think it will take to maintain that road in order to accept responsibility for it, which will also cost us a lot to take care of. So, you know, there's a balance. Right now, it's nice because, and there are some instances where development wants access to 56 where we probably wouldn't want to allow it, but maybe our standards wouldn't prohibit it. And it's easy to say, well, CDOT, you got to deal with CDOT. It's not our choice. And so sometimes it's nice to be able to kind of stand behind that shield. There are other times where we want to do things and we don't have the legal right to because we don't own the right of way, and that's frustrating. And their processes are bureaucratic. I mean, that's no shock to anybody. They're very time consuming. And they just really have no, I mean, even the intersection at 287 and Mountain and 287 and Berthoud Parkway, both are hideous. They're never maintained. And I just talked to Keith a couple weeks ago about kind of prodding them to get out, clean up the weeds, and if not, I guess we could just do it, but we're not really supposed to. So, and their maintenance crews are generally pretty responsive when we prod, but it's not on their priority list. And, you know, CDOT, I think, I shouldn't speak for them, but my sense of it is they don't care about how things look, they just need cars to move. And so if you know, if a local jurisdiction wants to make it look nice and take care of it, they're happy to allow you to do that with some very strict requirements. And if, you know, and if you don't make that happen and pay for it, they're not gonna do it.
Well, I definitely think we need to up our game with how things appear, how the entrances to our community and even the maintenance along Mountain Avenue. And if we're doing it already, and I'd love to be able to shut down Mountain Avenue and have events for our businesses, I'd like to see the impact to us, if staff can just evaluate what is gonna be the impact. Obviously, that's more work for town staff, and so that's important to know. What is gonna be that staff impact? Anyway, that's all.
Fair points.
Yeah.
Can you look into that?
We
Again,
are,
the CDOT?
yeah, and I think, you know, from a practical standpoint, I just talked to, so Brian in my office has mostly been the one coordinating with CDOT. I asked him probably a month ago to prod them again. I don't think he's received a response yet, but.
With the NPO too, they're very difficult sometimes to work with, so.
We're low on the totem pole, so we have to advocate for what we need.
Cool.
Good.
Yeah, great reports. Mayor Pro Tem.
Well, speaking of CDOT, I was gonna go bother them again about the Ninth and Mountain Crossing, which they were pushing to have a study on that crossing and stuff, but I have not heard back from them. It's good timing for that.
Great.
I would also be supportive of pushing up Newell Farm discussions, if that staff allows that. I think it's critical that we have an idea of where we're going with that, in tandem with any new developments that are coming online. Then the last thing I wanted to ask about, it's been a while since we've had an update on the sustainability plan. I was wondering if we had a date lined up for that.
We do, and I've got to go back and look here, but we do have that upcoming.
That's all I've got tonight.
Do you want to just give that during your reports first?
Yeah, I'll look that up and.
Okay.
Yeah, I think you guys covered CML quite well. You guys attended more sessions than I did, but I'm really glad I went. Always awesome up there, meeting other elected officials. Got to talk to Monuments Mayor, who's the same size as us, same issue with rail going through their community and not stopping. So it was kind of good to make initial contact with other communities going through the same thing. Other than that, I agree with Trustee Wing, the fireworks were awesome. I loved the tour today too, so thanks to staff, kudos on all the hard work going throughout that whole day. And that's all I have right now.
Do you need to close that public hearing?
We do, I'll wait till after the reports, and we'll do the report quick. So I'll turn it over to staff.
While I'm trying to find the right document here on my laptop to give you some updates on the sustainability plan. I very much appreciate Trustee Albrecht's comments about connecting the community with public safety. We're gonna have a great opportunity on my reports tonight to tell you about is National Night Out is August 5th. So this will be the first time that we host a large National Night Out event. Tuesday, August 5th from 3 to 6 p.m. at Town Park. We'll have attendance from the Larimer County Sheriff's Office, Berthoud Fire, House and Ambulance Services, lots of community organizations. It's a great opportunity for folks to come out. They can see vehicles. I think the LCSO horse posse will have some horses there. There'll be some fun activities for kids, like bounce houses and stuff like that. And then we're also going to be giving away hot dogs and chips and drinks to the first 500 folks that show up. So,
Dunk tank?
I don't think we have a dunk tank. Oh, there is a dunk tank.
Yeah, I got asked to be in it, and I'm gonna
Spoke too soon.
I'm volunteering all the other trustees too, so.
There we go.
Enjoy your moment.
Show up with a swimsuit, because you're going in.
And National Night Out is really, obviously this is a program that exists all over the country, but the primary goal is to build community and to connect community with first responders and public safety. So, I love it.
Awesome.
Right.
August 5th, did you say?
August 5th, from 3 to 6 p.m. at Town Park.
would that be an appropriate time to have a booth set up for people to meet and greet trustees and the mayor?
I think that would be totally reasonable and appropriate, yes.
And then there's protection.
We'd love to have you help come.
Sorry.
We'd love to have you help come cook hot dogs too, so.
Yeah.
Cool.
Thanks, Chris, I appreciate that.
Sure. Yeah, I think that's definitely something we could accommodate. Let's see, go back to my list here. We talked about a lot of things. Oh, this is, I'm gonna pass this down, I've got a couple extra copies. This is a report that we can pull out of a software program that we utilize called Placer AI. It's primarily utilized for economic development activities, so we can see, we can drill down right to the specific business and see who's coming and going from that business. What hours are they coming? What are their busy times? How many people a day are coming in and out of there? What are their income levels? What are the zip codes where they live? All of that stuff. We can also use it to see event results. And so on the first page is kind of the box that gets drawn, kind of the geofence, if you want to call it that. That the system then pulls basically cell phone pings from all the folks that were in that box over the course of the day on July 3rd. And so there's, you know, not all of them were necessarily there at the event because the event was really just half the day. So there, you know, a small percentage of this number is people coming in and out of the rec center earlier in the day and things like that. But on July 3rd, there was over 18,000 people at Wagner Farm Park. According to this data, and so I think it seems to be pretty consistent in the ways that we've used it in the past.
Is this like over a certain amount of time or like a time
It's
point?
basically the whole day, but you can see that the average time on page 2, on the back of page 1, the average time that somebody was there was about 114 minutes. So people were there for about 2 hours, which makes sense. They were going and hanging out at the event, throwing the frisbee, getting treats at the food trucks, you know, hanging out with friends and family, whatever, and then staying for the fireworks show most likely. So
It doesn't look like that includes the Turner area, because that was pretty jamming when I was over there.
it does not, at least as I understand how the system works. I did not generate this report, but I believe it's just within that geofence.
That's a good, because cars were all Bertha
Yeah.
Parkway,
Yes, I don't
almost
even
to
know if that's
287,
inclusive.
so didn't capture them.
But it does also indicate on page 3 that about 2/3 of the attendees were from Loveland, or not 2/3, excuse me, 1/3 of the attendees were from Loveland, about 30, almost right at 33%. Which shouldn't be a big shocker since Loveland didn't have a fireworks show this year, so we had a lot of extra folks come and visit, which is cool. So year over year from last year, that's a 30% increase in attendees. But again, a big chunk of those were probably folks coming from Loveland. And then year over 2 years, it's a 88% increase, and so in attendees. And so
Again, the space seemed to accommodate 18,000 people. That was pretty amazing.
It still seemed like there was plenty of room.
It was, absolutely.
And that's people coming and going, right? It's not necessarily that they're all there at the same time. Maybe folks came and their kids jumped in the bounce houses and they went home to go watch fireworks somewhere else. And I also don't know if it double counts people. So like, you know, if you leave I don't know the answer to this question. I'm sure we could find it. But so if you left the box, walked over and hung out with your friends at Turner and then came back, did it count you again? I think the answer to that is almost certainly yes. So there's some wiggle in there, but I think what we can kind of confidently say is that there's a very significant number of people who came and participated in the event and enjoyed the fireworks display.
You know the sidewalk that comes off the pickleball courts and I guess it would go east?
Yep.
It was almost like that was a dividing line, that we had plowed that field,
is.
but nobody would go into it.
It is really the dividing line, and we actually try to keep people out of that. So there's a safe boundary around the fireworks. And it's basically, you kind of think of it, if the firework goes 800 feet in the air, then there can't be anybody within 800 feet of the launch site, for obvious reasons. So if that accidentally dumped over, then in theory that mortar shell is gonna blow up before it gets out of that boundary. And so, you know, we actually have support from the sheriff's department and others to help keep people out of that kind of safe zone. And it does function really nicely as kind of a hard boundary. And then, everything north of that's nice grass and
Right, exactly.
so it's kind of a perfect boundary line, but yeah, folks walk on that, and then, the sidewalk back and forth that goes down to Turner, that's really heavily utilized. People go back and forth to Turner. People will walk over to Hayes and get extra snacks and drinks and then come back to the park. That is a very common occurrence, and so you see people coming and going that way a lot, but
Nobody was on the football field either.
no, so the football field is within the safe zone, so you can't go out on the Turner
Okay.
football field.
Okay.
But behind the football field to the west of that, there's kind of the big multi-purpose field that you can be on, and that was, I wouldn't be surprised if there was over 1,000 people there.
Yeah, it was jamming. When I worked for the city of Loveland in their economic development, I was their Place Your AI data expert. And one of the interesting things about this number, so the 18.2K, is that's only cell phones.
Right.
And so that doesn't count for children. And so you can double that number. And I don't know how so like you're saying, it doesn't say the visitor frequency on here, which usually that indicates someone came multiple times.
Multiple times, yeah.
But this isn't even accounting for children, so there was a lot more people there than
Wow.
even this is showing, which is wild. That's totally wild.
And again, I think that there was a lot of folks coming. I think there was a lot of folks coming in and out of that boundary, and maybe multiple times. And I know there were folks that were parked over south of Adams Bank, and they would walk across the street, come up, grab food at the food trucks, and then walk back. I mean, there was a lot of that kind of movement. But I would say, from my perspective, I think it's safe to say there's somewhere between 15 and 18,000 people spread out around town, not just concentrated at the park, that came and enjoyed those fireworks. It was, anyway, it was really fun to see, so.
It was.
Yeah. And I'm sorry, Trustee Murphy, or Mayor Pro Tem Murphy, I'm having a hard time finding in my
Just shoot me
files,
an email.
the most
It's all
recent
good.
schedule, so I will shoot that to the board regarding the Sustainability Action Plan. We have some stakeholder engagement coming up. We have a meeting actually next week to kind of prepare for that stakeholder engagement, and that will come to the board after that, so. But I will shoot you guys a note, make myself a reminder right now. And that's it for me.
Okay. Attorney Smith, anything before we close the hearing out?
I have nothing, Your Honor.
Okay. Would anyone like to move to approve the continuation request for the Broad Meadow Annexation Neighborhood Master Plan and zoning to a date certain from July 8th, 2025 to July 22nd, 2025?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, Trustee Ayers has moved on this. Trustee Wing has seconded. Clerk, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Trustee Wing,
Yes.
Trustee Hardy,
Yes.
Trustee Ayers,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Murphy,
Yes.
Trustee Albrecht,
Yes.
Mayor Karspeck.
Yes. All right, thank you, everyone.